Yeah, it's a little amazing, too. I know you're trying to protect your bullpen, but at the same time, Palante is out there literally wearing it.
That's what it sounded like yesterday on the Astros TV network. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, another rough one for the Cardinals, this time with Andre Palante on the mound. And it really came down to that, Alex. They didn't get a good start out of Andre Palante yesterday. He had been working on the issues that he's had against right-handed hitters. Unfortunately for him, they did not come to fruition against one of the better right-handed lineups in Major League Baseball. They had 7 of their 9 hitters that were right-handed, another switch hitter, and then one lefty in the lineup yesterday to face off against Andre Palante, and he recorded just 6 outs against them as he faced them 15 times. The right-handed hitters, that is. That's not what you want, Alex. And when you go into a game and you've got that kind of an arsenal where you are struggling against right-handed hitters and then you do not have your command, well, that's what it's going to look like. He ends up giving them just 3 innings, 6 hits, 6 earned runs, only 1 strikeout. Alex, I know this is something that me and T-Bone disagree on a bit, and it's not like a big disagreement at all. I don't know how much worse he was yesterday than he was in his first start in terms of what his stuff was, right? I think there was definitely a lack of command there yesterday compared to his first start. I would also say a lot of this is who you get. He is Miles Michaelis light in a lot of ways in terms of the way that he goes about things. He is going to rely heavily on getting ground balls and converting those into outs. And sometimes that happens, and it looks like it did against Cincinnati. It also helps that Cincinnati had a lot of lefties in the lineup in that game. Sometimes he's not going to get those ground balls converted into outs. Sometimes they're just going to get through. They're going to have seeing eye singles that go away. And when that happens, it looks like yesterday. He didn't get hit super hard for the most part. I think there were only 3 hard hits against him yesterday in terms of 95-plus miles per hour off of the bat. But he relies a lot on batted ball luck, and yesterday it didn't go his way, and that's what it's going to look like sometimes when you've got Andre Palante on the mound. What'd you make of it?
I mean, I got to be honest, that looked like a number 5 starter. And that's what you put Andre Palante into that situation. I didn't buy into what took place against the Cincinnati Reds with Andre Palante. This falls more in line of what I expected from him. And I can't blame him for this. I think this is who Andre Palante is. I think what happened in Cincinnati was kind of like what I fell victim to with John Gant, where I'm like, hey, all of this disaster's happening around you, but it's looking good. That was a game that was prototypical of a number 5 starter. And for the Cardinals, this is the position you put yourself in because you haven't gone out there and upgraded. And honestly, the more I watched Andre Palante pitch, the more I thought, we talked a lot about going out there and getting Brad Keller. I think Brad Keller would have been somewhat of like this for you, too. Anybody you're putting in this position is going to be a guy who's probably only going to get you 4 innings, is going to give up somewhere between 4 and 5 earned runs, and you're going to be playing catch-up baseball. The problem for the Cardinals in Andre Palante's position was that game got out of hand thanks to Palante, but the game was still close enough because of what their offense had done, and then they blew that game wide open a little bit later on after Palante had left the game. So I don't sit here and yell from the mountaintops that you got to get an upgrade over Palante. This is the position you put yourself in by having this as your number 5 starter. There are more problems around the Cardinals than just a number 5 guy.
Yeah, they've got a lot of issues right now, and it's in that regard kind of feeling like last year a bit, where you've got one thing that trickles down into the next. Your rotation the last time through has not been good enough, man. Their last 4 games from the rotation, 5 innings, 4 earned. 4 innings, 0 earned, but that's a bit misleading. That was the Lance Lynn start where he allowed 4 unearned runs because of the defense. The next one, 5 2/3 inning, 3 earned runs. That was the Gibson start. And then last night, 3 innings, 6 earned runs. Over those 4 starts, Alex, the last 4 games, the Cardinals starters have gone 17 innings. The Cardinals bullpen has gone 16 innings. That is completely unsustainable. This is not a way that you can go about things. Part of the issue is the defense. The defense is making your starters throw more pitches because they're not making the plays that need to be made. Nolan Gorman's got to be better. Nolan Arenado's got to be better. There's been a couple of plays recently that Mason Wynn has to be able to make. We've talked a lot about how great he's been defensively, and he has. But he needs to be able to make the routine play more often. I think he leads the team now with 10 errors, if I'm not mistaken. It's not going to work for you. Then you look at what the offense is doing. And yes, the home runs are great. We talked at the beginning of the season about how, man, if they could just add some power to this, we like what we see because they're doing a lot of the other things well. They're making productive outs, which isn't necessarily a great thing, but it's something they didn't do a lot of a year ago. Well, now you're looking at where the Cardinals are at, and all they're doing is hitting home runs, Alex. When they're scoring, the last time I looked this up, the last time that the Cardinals had multiple men on base that came around to score on a base hit. So let's say runner on second and third, right? Come around to score via a base hit. The last time that happened was Saturday, May 25th against the Chicago Cubs. Alex, that was 10 days ago, dude.
Wow.
In the last 10 days, you have had 0 situations where you have multiple runners on base score via a base hit. You've had a runner on that scores via home run, but they're not coming through with this base hit. You saw it again yesterday. I don't know what happened to Brendan Donovan. It was like he glitched. You know, sometimes we're on the radio, Alex, and you're thinking of something, and you're like, this is what I'm going to say. And then for whatever reason, you glitch, and you just like, stop. That felt like what happened to Brendan Donovan at the plate yesterday. I think he was looking slider because I think it was like 14 of 16 pitches from Abreu to left-handed hitters yesterday were sliders. And then boom, boom, 2 fastballs right down the middle against Donovan, and he wasn't looking for either of them. Strikeout, get back to the bench. That can't happen in that spot, dude. It cannot happen. You finally had an opportunity to get back into that thing in a serious way. And he strikes out looking with 2 fastballs right down the middle that he had to at least swing at.
Yeah.
This team's got a lot of stuff going in the wrong direction right now, and it's why they've lost 4 of their last 5.
And one more to add on to that, because I saw this in Bernie's article, and it falls true because of last night also. I think yesterday Bernie Miklasz put it in his piece that over their last 8 games, they've hit 8 solo home runs and 6 2-run home runs in their last 8 games. So you're hitting a lot of home runs.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then like last night, again, you get Wynn, who has somebody on when he hits it, but you're just...
It's 2-run homers. Like,
yeah. You're not...
I think they've had 3 2-run home runs in this 9 or 8 game yet so far road trip. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, like they're not coming through with that big hit. Like bases loaded, big spot, right? Hit a double here, clear the bases. That hasn't happened.
It's just
in 9 days.
We were complaining so much at the beginning of the season of this team's not hitting home runs. There's no power, and then it's like when you're getting power, you're only getting power with one dude, and you're not maximizing the damage.
It just feels like it's something new all the time.
You're falling back.
When one thing works, another thing starts to.
It's what the Cardinals have been for the last 4 years. When one thing feels like it's great, the scale tips the other direction because one thing broke. With pitching, your offense is great. When your bullpen breaks, well, your starting pitching is great. You always are going back and forth, and it's why I was so concerned when they went on this hot streak that it was just that, a hot streak and nothing else.
And their inability to get the big hit not only prevents them from winning games or potentially coming back and winning a game like last night, for example, but it also goes back to what we talked about yesterday, to where they can't win a game big, to where they cannot put that final blow and put the game away, to where they don't have to use the high leverage arms. They have opportunities. What happens? Well, they don't come through. Boom. Next thing you know, you're running out JoJo, you're running out Kittredge, you're running out Helsley. Boom. Once again, you're running the big 3 back out there. When you can't get the big hit, you can't come back in games, and you can't put games away. So you get stuck in this muddy middle, which is, okay, now we got to win a bunch of 1-run or 2-run games, which is very tough to sustain as a model, and it is where the problem has been for the Cardinals all season long.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's a really weird team, and somebody on the text line said, guys, this is what mediocrity looks like.
Yeah, it does.
They're right.
Yep.
Like when you're a middling baseball team, things don't go your way in every area at the same time. And when they were going well, it was like, hey, they won 12 of 15, and they deserve a ton of credit. It's why I put on this conductor hat.
Don't put it on again.
I put this thing on because they had won 12 of 15 games.
You gonna keep it on?
And they were playing good baseball. I take it off.
Oh, what a fair-weather fan.
5,
Unbelievable.
And they look bad. Like, they generally speaking are not playing good quality baseball right now. You're not getting good starts. Your bullpen is showing some signs of leakage, although I will give credit where it's due. The bullpen has mostly been good, even in this road trip where you've had some struggles lately. Defense has been porous. Offense is not coming through in the big spots. It's just it's a very
not eating innings.
Frustrating team to watch right now. And things are going to open up schedule-wise. You should get some wins. It's more about what the Cardinals are doing than it is the opponent. We've been talking about this for a while now because they've played bad teams and lost. They've played good teams and won. It's about how they're playing. But Colorado, Pittsburgh, the Cubs, Miami, San Francisco, this is a lot of teams that are similar to you or worse. So that should help them. But, man, what we have seen over their last 5 games has not been encouraging by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I think the frustrating part about this series is I expected this in the Philadelphia series. You know, I expected Philly to take it to you, and my expectation was you win 1 of 3. Maybe if you get lucky, get a couple bounces your way, you can take 2 or 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies. The Astros to me are in the same vein as you. And
you can't beat yourself.
They've beaten you, and you've beaten yourself as well, to where your 5th starter doesn't do his job last night. Bullpen has held its serve, but your offense doesn't come through and a chance to get back into the game. Like, the Astros, to me, are not a playoff team. They would be a playoff team in the NL. They're not a playoff team in the AL. They're in the same vein as you in that mediocrity state, and they've just taken 2 or 3 from you. And they are set up well to go for a sweep later on today.
If you can't consistently beat mediocre teams, then I'm not going to invest my interest in you. I'm not going to look at you and say, oh, well, you could be a playoff team and go on a run in the playoffs, because you can't beat mediocre teams. You lost a series to the Mets. You lost a series to the Tigers. And I know I'm going backwards, but we focused so much on the Angels, Red Sox, Orioles, and Cubs that we were thinking, oh, this team's back. But all season long, it's been inconsistent in terms of when you take on mediocre teams, you underperform.
So, Alex, I owe you an apology.
Man, it's a Wednesday.
Wow, 11:16.
I know.
I've worked on this show for...
I think I have an idea of where you're coming from with this apology, and just so you know...
I don't. There's so many things you can
that's
apologize
true.
for.
That's why I'm throwing this one out there, because there's another one you can apologize for. I did watch the game last night from start to finish. But
good for you. He turned it off, I think, after seeing his tweet that says, ladies and gentlemen, you can call it a night.
I kept seeing pictures of Luka standing next to a bathtub, so I assumed he gave up on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I had better things to do.
So I'm just assuming, and this, you know, what happens when you assume things, that your apology has to do with something involving, and I'm forgetting the word, runners in...
Yeah, scoring position. All right,
okay.
By the way, congratulations on watching the game last night. It's a good change for you.
Yeah.
I do like what the Cardinals
He'll apologize for that one in about 3 hours. I understand how that one sounded.
No, I don't. I thought it was a good moment, yeah?
Look, man, just don't get angry. Runners in scoring position. I was right, you were wrong.
Cardinals as a team are batting .235. Now, that sounds bad until you think about the league average being .240 this year. Not great, boys.
Sounds like below league average.
The Cardinals as a team have an OPS of .680 on the season. Again, sounds bad until you realize that is exactly league average for the Major League Baseball season. With runners in scoring position, the Cardinals have a slugging percentage of .314, which is worst in all of Major League Baseball. With runners in scoring position, the Cardinals have an OPS of .613, which is the worst among all teams in Major League Baseball that are actually trying to play baseball this year. I'm not including the Chicago White Sox because they're not a real franchise. It doesn't count. If somebody throws a no-hitter against the White Sox this year, that's my team. It doesn't count.
Good thing you barely beat them.
Congratulations, you went out there, you did your job. It doesn't count. They're not a real franchise.
I forgot that you said that.
I apologize, Alex, because a couple of weeks ago I said the Cardinals are bad with runners in scoring position, yes, but they're just a bad hitting team. And so it's actually not a reflection of what they're doing with runners in scoring position. The numbers that we cite with runners in scoring position are just a reflection of who they are as a team. It's not the case any longer. The Cardinals are now much worse with runners in scoring position than they are overall. You're seeing a divide there that is continuing to grow, and I can't explain it. Lisa's going to text in and say it's because they don't have the clutch gene. It's because they don't have guys that can come up with a big with runners in scoring position or in a big spot and come through. Whatever the explanation is, I owe Alex an apology because he saw something that was clearly going to come true over the foreseeable future, and I did not.
This is like when your significant cheats on you 7 different times and they keep apologizing. I know this apology doesn't matter because in about 3 days you're going to have tone with me again and yell at me about something that a month from now I'll be correct with. It's fine.
Yeah.
2 for 11, by the way, on runners in scoring position.
I'm sorry.
Hey, man, I appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
This is what we are. We're about honesty here. I appreciate your apology.
They're 6 for 32 with runners in scoring position in their last 5 games.
Oh, Jesus.
That is brutal.
That's worse than when I even made the reference to it.
It's a 188 batting average. It's not good. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues. But next, Alex, from what I understand, T-Bone has told us the lineup is out. The game is at 12:15. That means it is time for the lineup game here on BK and Ferrario.
I already know what this one's going to be. Figured it out. Every backup player that was on the bench last night is going to be starting today.
Okay.
That's it.
Well,
Pajes, Crawford. Carlson played, didn't he? Carlson's probably going to be back in.
You got a righty on the mound. His name is Ronel Blanco, and he's really good. He's 30 years old. He came out of nowhere. He's been a middling reliever for them over the last couple of seasons, and suddenly he decided, I'm going to be a starter now at 30, and I'm going to go out there and have a no-hitter very early on in my season, and I'm going to have a 2.4 ERA in my first 10 starts.
Failed starter.
Lefties are tough. He's really tough on lefties. He's really tough on righties. They both have an OPS below 600 against Blanco. They're both hitting 170 against Blanco. So good luck today with the offense. Be a rough one. That is the starting point. This is the lineup game. The Fast Lane normally does it. It is their game. We are not stealing it.
We're borrowing.
The game's at 12:15, so we'll go ahead and keep it going for you here on BK.
I actually think they said that if the lineup comes out like 2 hours prior to the game, that they won't play it. Or 3 hours, like they said, if we start our show and there's like 2 hours in, I got to go back and find the audio of Stalter. They admitted that we can use it when there's a day game.
Okay. I'll ask him in the future just to make sure that we don't get snapped in half by Jamie Rivers or Kerry Davis. I prefer to continue to have both of my limbs.
Jamie would snap us.
Kerry would definitely snap us if he was mad enough.
Yeah.
He would, but I don't think we can make Kerry angry enough.
I think job was to meet Ray Lewis in the hole and make sure Ray Lewis did not get to his running back. No, quarterback.
I'm not saying Kerry can't break us. I'm saying I don't think Kerry would get angry at us enough to break us.
Kerry had that in him.
Yeah,
Kerry was capable of seeing Ray Lewis in front of him and saying,
"Hey man,
I am going to stop
Kerry soft right now?"
I'm saying
getting to my running
I'm saying
back.
I don't think we could grind Kerry's gears enough to break us. Jamie gets mad at us every day.
And what I'm saying is Kerry can find it within himself to do that, so he can make himself angry.
Kerry, I want you to understand something if you're listening. I'm saying that you are a sweet individual and you'd never do that to us. BK is asking for it, so please break it.
More than you.
I think he was calling you soft, Kerry.
That's not what I was saying.
Let's get into the lineup game. Alex, it's a righty on the mound. They seem to like Donovan at the top of the lineup. Yeah. Would you like to go with Brendan Donovan?
Yeah, because Mason Wynn to me is not playing today. This screams Brandon Crawford kind of day. So yeah, I'll put Brendan Donovan here.
All right, way to go, Donnie!
I think we're not supposed to play the Sounders.
What, they get angry about the Sounders? The whole point of the lineup game is to play the Sounders.
Yeah, I think it's something about like if they lose, they don't get the Sounders.
Oh no, I thought it was if they don't get a hit, they don't get the Sounder.
I think it's lose.
Is it?
I thought it was lose now, and then if they win, like they need to
get a hit. Man, they have so many rules on this.
We're not going to follow.
Yeah, we're going to do the BK Ferrario rules. This is Burleson.
I think that sounds right.
You got to keep your at least one hot bat in the lineup if you take Wynn out.
Burley, you're so rugged and manly.
We're going to just go ahead and put Goldie in here. Goldie's been good, by the way. I know everybody's complaining about Goldie and Arenado. We tie the two together. Goldie's been fine over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Pick it up, Arenado. You're dragging Goldie down with you.
Yeah, Goldie's guilty by association right now. But you want to go Goldie here?
Oh, yeah, I would say so.
I love gold!
Look, Holly's going to be sitting their best player in Mason Wynn, so he's got to keep somewhat of a competitive lineup out there. Yeah, Gorman.
Stormin' Garmin, he's taking the league by storm.
So much for a getaway day lineup. Nolan Arenado?
Nolan Arenado!
Nolan is a security guard at the lumber yard.
This right here is where it's going to get away from the Cardinals.
All right, so we've got Siani in center field still. Yeah. I think Matt Carpenter probably starts today.
Crawford's your shortstop.
Crawford at short.
So
and Von Herrera or Pedro Pajes. Probably
Pajes is in. Yeah. So Carpenter here?
Yeah.
What the H is wrong with you guys?
So Siani would be 9th. Crawford would be 8th. So
it might be a DH day for Gorman, maybe. Especially
coming
off
in.
of the.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Especially coming off of the bad plays defensively. Maybe you go with Carlson here.
Ooh, good stuff. Righty.
Is that your guys' guess, Carlson?
Yeah, let's go Carlson.
Sure. No.
I'm feeling a Pedro Pajes 6-hole.
I mean, it might be Mason Wynn. Maybe they're going back to Mason Wynn.
I can promise you, after the oblique scare that they had, there's no way Mason Wynn's playing today. You want to go with it? Go with it.
I'll let you have the honors.
Pajes.
Sorry, guys.
Mason Wynn.
What a shame.
Oh, my God.
Okay, hold on. Hold on a minute, damn it.
Jose Fermin might be in there today.
Is he?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Give me.
Not great.
Oh, my God.
Did we say Dylan Carlson?
Just give me Brandon Crawford. please.
Did we say Dylan Carlson?
Yeah.
Stop it! I don't want to guess.
Michael Ciani?
No, Ciani's in the 9 hole. Let's backtrack this minute.
Ivan Herrera. Give me Herrera.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to say this right now. I think Ivan Herrera is going to hit a home run right here. Oh. Marsh just literally called that at Ballpark Village.
Okay, now this is Pages. It's going to go Pages, Crawford, Ciani.
Good.
What's your guess?
Pages. Crawford, Pages, meet Ciani.
So will jumping crawdaddies.
Pages.
It's just dynamic stuff.
And then Michael Sinise.
Michael.
You know Michael
That's
Phelps?
7, 8, 9
Michael
that you can
Cera.
do.
Like I said, the getaway part was the Cardinals are getting away from the game. 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, can you run it for us, T-Bone?
All right, leading off, Brendan Donovan in left, followed by Alec Burleson in right, then Paul Goldschmidt at first, Nolan Gorman at second, Nolan Arenado at third, Ivan Herrera is the DH, Brandon Crawford at short, Pedro Pages is catching, Michael Ciani is in center field with Miles Michaelis on the mound.
I mean, they could do worse.
Could they?
Yeah, probably.
Really?
You could have
think
Dylan Carlson out there.
Honestly,
Fair.
probably the same thing.
What are you upset about?
People are listening to this right now, right?
I hope.
What are you upset about?
Did we
you
admit that I was right about Dylan Carlson? Or no, we're not there yet.
Oh, I think we should admit all three of us were right. I think all three of us took that stance.
Me and Ferrario, while you were
we killed him off on
pulling a
Monday.
Craig Counsell and on the morning show Monday, we said that we were ready to move on, and it would be better for the team if Walker would learn to hit a baseball so they could send Carlson down.
His best attribute right now is standing at the plate.
Yeah.
He did a really good job yesterday of just not
moving.
Swinging the bat.
You think that was a Turner Ward workshop of like, hey, man, we're going to work on something new. And I call it the statue. I need you to just stand up there.
I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
He did a great job of it. And then, unfortunately, Brendan Donovan tried the same thing. It didn't work as well
you
for
actually
him.
shouldn't try that in the bases loaded. They forgot the rules.
All right, so that is the Cardinals lineup as they take the field later on this afternoon against the Houston Astros. Going to be a tough one. This is not exactly a great pitching matchup, but this is exactly when they come alive. I'm sure Brandon Crawford's going to have a 3-for-5 type of a day. Pedro Pages probably hits a homer, and Ciani's going to come through with a 1-for-3 performance with a sacrifice bunt, and he's going to make a couple of plays in center field. Everything's going to go great.
.56. No shot you just said he's going to hit a home run. Pages.
Hey, the last time we crapped on a player, he hit a home run and made a Gold Glove type play in the game.
So Dylan Carlson probably going to come in, pinch hit, home run late in the game against the lefty.
How many errors are we going to see today?
Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joins us next year on 101 ESPN.
Hey, Chris Kerber with you here. Listen to Donna's review here of Sean with Classic Air Care. I was very pleased with Sean's maintenance service of my AC unit. Sean was very personable and diligent in cleaning my unit inside and out. While he was working, he noticed that the shutoff water valve for the outside hose hookup was dripping and simply tightened it up, which stopped the dripping. Did a little bit more, didn't he? Such a nice surprise. He was so proactive. In my opinion, Sean is an extremely exemplary service technician. That's Donna. Those are the kind of reviews you get if you're going to earn a 4.8 Google rating or more, and that's what Classic Air Care has. That's the kind of service and the quality that you're going to get. So when you have that frustrating moment of your air conditioner breaking down this summer, or maybe it's making some sounds and you want to get it repaired before a costly breakdown, call the folks at Classic Air Care. You can book online as well at classicaircare.com, and you'll get the same kind of service that Donna get. Quality, it's going to get the unit fixed. They stand behind their work, and the service technicians are experts. It's Classic Air Care, making people comfortable since 1926.
Tara Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals lost to the Houston Astros last night, 8-5. They'll be back in action later on today. 1:10 will be first pitch as Blanco will get the start for Houston. Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's go out to the 101 ESPN hotline here in BK and Ferrario to be joined by Chris Kerber. He's the voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday, normally at 1:30, today at 11:30. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. I hear that you had a conversation with the Blues head coach Drew Bannister. What did you learn in your conversation that'll be a part of the Curbside podcast?
Yeah, we just uploaded that edition of the podcast, BK, and talked to Drew Bannister for about 30 minutes. We talked about Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou and Colton Parayko. Talked about his philosophy on one of the big changes or where some of the big focus for this team needs to be. Young players that went through a whole lot, including a story he tells about a regret he has that keeps him grounded. So a terrific interview, a fun one to hear from Drew Bannister there. But one of the big things is just where he thinks the St. Louis Blues are right now. And with somebody like Robert Thomas, where Drew Bannister doesn't even think we've come close to where we even know what the real ceiling for Robert Thomas is. You know, how he really saw Jordan Kyrou in the last 4 weeks of the season. The offense started to click because the defensive side of his game was becoming more second nature. So I think there's a real upbeat side to his approach right now as he enters into this offseason.
So, Curbs, and not to spoil the podcast so people can go check that one out, but to talk philosophy with Drew Bannister, one thing that I'm noticing throughout these playoffs and that I noticed in the 4 teams in the conference final is everyone likes to use the term heavy team, and I think the Florida Panthers do fall into that conversation. But the other 3 teams, the Rangers, the Oilers, the Dallas Stars, they're not rush teams. It feels like they're more possession-built teams. Is that something of a philosophy Bannister's thinking of?
Well, that is every single team in the National Hockey League. And, yeah, Alex, you're right. It's the Blues, and Drew Bannister talked a lot about this actually in the regular season. If you go back, and he kept referring to the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks 2 seasons ago were leading the league in most of the rush offensive statistics. It was constantly on the rush. That really changed to the get it in deep, work it down low, forecheck style that Rick Tocchet really brought to them this year, and you saw the difference in what the Vancouver Canucks are. The one thing that Drew talks about in this interview is the style of play, how they need to be more aggressive, how they need to be more supportive, and how they're going to accomplish that. Because from top to bottom, he said in every aspect of the game, he wants to see this team get more aggressive and be more supportive of each other on the ice. So when and by that he means positionally and predictability. So when a mistake is made, because they are going to get made, and there are other NHL players on the other side trying to beat you, somebody else is in position to help out. So I think that's one of the biggest areas that's going to be driven in, is a certain level of aggressiveness and support come the start of training camp.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues, and he joins us weekly here on BK and Ferrario. Kerbs, as you look towards this offseason and what the Blues are going to try to accomplish, we're going to talk about this a little bit later today. We've got a Tinder Tuesday, but it's happening on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it is.
And there was a piece over on The Athletic about the free agency class and the wingers that are going to be available. Jake DeBrusk is a player that has long interested me, Kerbs, for this team. He just feels like a St. Louis Blue in the classic sense. I don't know, though, that this is a team that's going to be hyper-aggressive in the free agency market. So as you look towards this offseason, do you think that would be something they would consider, as going into the market for a younger player that could help them not just for next year, but for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I do see that as a possibility here, BK. And the reason is now, am I expecting a big splash? No. Would I love to be surprised, just the fan side of me like everybody else is? Sure. But am I expecting it? No, not really. Now, the thing is about Jake DeBrusk, he's an intriguing one. I think if the Bruins can't get an extension done with him, he's 27 years of age. Okay, so that's right in the wheelhouse of signing a player if the term, and by term I'm also talking the average value of his contract, if it is comfortable enough for the Blues, the age standpoint, he's right where he needs to be. He plays a good style. He plays that heavier style and can get it done. He can get you to 20 goals. He can get you – I don't think you're looking for him for 50-plus points every year. He's only hit that once in his career, right? But he has hit the 40-point plateau 5 times. So I think realistically at this point at 27 – if you get between 40 and 50 points, you can get to 20 goals, and he plays that heavy style. I think that's exactly the kind of player that can help round out the St. Louis Blues. So, to me, are they willing to sign him now? So a couple of years from now, at the age of 30 and stuff, he's right in the wheelhouse with when some of those other young players are getting their second and third year. Yeah, he's definitely one of those that intrigues me, because I don't see Jake DeBrusk's numbers earning him that really big contract. I mean, I could see the $4 to $5 million range for him.
Do you think the Blues would consider Kerbs going maybe a longer contract with a player like a Jake DeBrusk if you're lowering that AAV? And the reason I'm asking that is because if you're projecting this team to start to get into a winning window in about 3 years, if you sign a Jake DeBrusk to a 5-year contract to where the AAV maybe dips a little bit, he's right in line and still under contract and probably a good paid player for you when you're starting to ready to compete.
Yeah, well, there's a couple aspects. So let's go down the fantasy GM line here with Jake a little bit further. Okay,
speaking my love language, Kerbs.
Right. So Jake DeBrusk is an unrestricted free agent, right, at the age of 27. If you make a trade for him, you can then sign him to an 8th year. If you don't, as a UFA, you can only slide him, or you can only sign him to a 7-year contract, right? You're looking at a player whose average value over the last couple of years was $4 million. Does he get the 5? Does he get the 5.5? And can somebody get him to that range? If you go back and you look at the age of guys like Tyler Bozak, and where they were, and Pat Maroon, and the age that they were when the Blues signed him to a 5-year contract. And Bozak, he was 30, right? And look at how effective he was for a few years. So to that end, I do think that somebody like Jake DeBrusk is one of those players that if you're comfortable with the number 5, maybe 5.5, somewhere in there, if you're comfortable with that number, then, yeah, you're very comfortable with it because it's going to grow with these young players. And then he's hitting just 30 years of age. And look, you're going to have players, and you're going to have players that are effective once they hit 30 to 32 to 33. And he might be one of those guys. But from a style of play standpoint, going back to BK's original question, he checks a lot of boxes that can be helpful to the St. Louis Blues.
All right, Kerbs, I'm going to throw another name to you because the guy that I've fallen in love with is playing in the Stanley Cup final right now. I know Kerbs is even wondering who this is. There's no nickname, Kerbs. Sam Bennett. If we're talking Jake DeBrusk, but Sam Bennett is reportedly could be floated around because Florida might be in a cap casualty in the offseason. Would that player intrigue you more?
Intrigue me more. I'm going to probably right now say I don't think so. And the reason is I think Sam Bennett, with what he's done, he could end up costing you a little bit more. I think Sam Bennett's going to end up costing you more, so I'm a little less intrigued by that. Now, look, same age, all right. Honestly, similar numbers, a little more experience, but similar, yearly numbers, and maybe even a little less than Jake at a couple of times. But you also got to be careful here, Alex, because the one thing that you want to make sure you're doing is in the process, you're not signing a guy to a contract that might be difficult to move, that could end up blocking one of these young kids coming in. So is it a Dvorsky? Is it a centerman? Is it a winger? What options do you have? And then eventually maybe some raises for some of these other guys coming up. So to me, there's a lot of factors that get involved there, but I kind of like what Jake DeBrusk brings to the table. Some people might think I'm nuts. I'd go Jake over Sam Bennett.
People think I'm nuts all the time, Kerbs. It's fine.
It's fine. That's part of the job.
That's what we do.
That's the fun of it. We can disagree on this. It's sports. It's not like it's life or death here. All right, Kerbs, next Wednesday, we're 1 week away from We Went Blues Day, 5 years removed from the Stanley Cup being hoisted here in St. Louis. Kerbs, I know the Blues are doing a bunch to be able to make this thing a big day once again. We're going to be having some of the players on the shows throughout the day here. I know we've got Jordan Bennington scheduled to be a part of our show. Tell us a little bit about what the Blues are doing this year for We Went Blues Day on the 5-year anniversary.
All right, well, first off, don't forget about the trivia night. All right, so trivia night is on that same night, June 12th. Tickets are only like $30 for a seat. So you get a table of 10 for $300. You get 10 of your buddies. You go spend $30 each. That's a lot less than what you're going to spend on a night out on the town. And it's 10 rounds of hockey-related, blues-centric trivia. Joe Vitale, Randy Carricker hosting, Tom Calhoun reading the questions. It's going to be a fun night. That's June 12th. And people can go to the website, stlouisblues.com, to get tickets for trivia night. But throughout the day, of course, here on 101, we're going to be replaying that Game 7. It's the 5th anniversary of the Cup. It's amazing how time flies, isn't it? But also, and this is the cool part, the Blues got permission to re-air the television broadcast of all 4 elimination games. So Game 6 against Winnipeg, Game 7 against Dallas, Game 6 against San Jose, Game 7 against Boston. And they partnered up with KMOV. So all 4 games are going to be aired on one of KMOV's digital channels. It's Channel 32, which launched on Monday. Right now, they're kind of running it as My Network programming. It's going to be rebranded, I think, in the fall. But KMOV has stepped up big time. And throughout the day, and this is kind of important, so fans, like if you go to Channel 32.1, right, with a traditional antenna, you can also buy a digital antenna, get free TV this way as well. But if you have something like Charter Spectrum, right, you can watch it on Channel 186. If you've got one of those older TVs, right, that has, like, I think if it's about 8 years or older, just reset your channels and let it find the digital channels. But all 4 elimination games are going to be televised in a 9-hour window during the day on Channel 32 there. So it's a pretty cool partnership the Blues have with KMOV to get this done. Amazing hoop jumping they had to do to get through it all and do it. So great work from Trevor Nickerson and Blue Note Productions on the Blues side as well. and pretty cool day to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Cup.
No doubt about it. There's what you can do to watch them. You can listen to Game 7 here next week on 101 ESPN. You'll hear some players, people involved with it next Wednesday as well. We went Blues Day, the 5-year anniversary, celebrating here on 101 ESPN and with the St. Louis Blues. If you want to hear Chris Kerber's conversation, the extended interview that he had with Blues head coach Drew Bannister, you can find that right now, 101ESPN.com and the 101 ESPN app. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, guys. Cheers. Have an awesome week.
Same
See
to
you,
you.
Kerbs.
As Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, as he joins us each and every Wednesday on BK and Ferrario. Coming up next, questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. Her and her team always taking care of you when it comes to your car and home insurance. They have the most competitive rates, and the customer service is, in my opinion, the most important factor in using Tracy Bibb, because you get personal attention from your agent. So if something happens, and look, it's not a matter of if, something will happen, whether it's with your car, with your home, you've got to be prepared. And you've got to have that agent that you can call any day, anytime, they answer, and you get your problem resolved. That's what Tracy and her team offer to her clients. It's an easy claims process, super simple. Tracy and her team take care of everything. All you got to do, give her a call today and tell Tracy you heard me, Alex Ferrario, talk about it on 101 ESPN, and she will walk you through the entire process. Free, easy, non-committal quote. She'll even cancel your insurance agent for you and get you over with the Bibb Agency. 314-328-4260. Again, 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Let's start out with this one. Alex from the 314. Would you rather try tackling Kerry Davis or take a check into the boards from Jamie Rivers? I feel like a lot of this comes down to the semantics. For example, how far away are they? How much of a running or skating start do they get prior to slamming my body either into the boards or onto the ground as I attempt to tackle Kerry Davis? So that's a big part of it. But if we just assume basically the same, dude, I have no interest in trying to tackle Kerry Davis.
You're crazy. I'm going that one because look at the phrasing of it. Try tackling. Here's what will happen. You're running at me, Kerry. I'm going to step side you like a raging bull, and then I will try and jump tackling you from behind as you run away from me. I don't have to take a check then from Jamie Rivers, and I'll just try tackling Kerry from behind.
Both of these results in broken bones all over my body and me crumbling to the ground, so it's not going to end well either direction. Dude, if you said I have to do my best to tackle Kerry Davis or I have to brace myself to take a check from Jamie,
I think I would do the check then. If you're telling me I have to stand in the lane of Kerry Davis,
not happening. No, sir.
I'm gonna see Jamie coming at me, and I'm gonna turn and put my chest to the plexiglass so you hit me from behind. There's less bones to break back there.
And I'll become Flat Stanley. Like my entire body will smash it.
Yeah, it's like a car. It's like a car crash. You just got to go numb. It's just
I will fold like a cheap table in front of Kerry Davis, or I will be smashed into a flat pancake with Jamie Rivers. Those are my options here. Neither is particularly enjoyable, but I would rather take the check from Jamie Rivers.
At least the glass when you get hit into it, if you're on a hockey rink, gives a little bit. Mm-hmm. You're not getting much give on anything from the tackle.
There's no give in Kerry Davis's body. If he's coming at you, he's dropping you.
Now I will say, if I'm wearing pads, the pads in football will protect me more than the pads that you get in hockey.
Oh, that's very true.
So that is something worth taking into consideration here, too.
I feel like the different scenario where it would be really tough for me is take the check away from Jamie Rivers and just stand in front of a slap shot from Jamie Rivers.
Oh, no.
That's where I'd be like, hey, I don't know, man. Either way, I'm dying, so.
All right, from the 314, guys, last night, Jimmy Ballgame said that he could see Alec Burleson hitting 30 home runs if he got an opportunity to be an everyday major leaguer. Do you agree with that? 30 feels like a lot. I could see him being a 20 to 25 guy, though, and in a really great year, getting up to 30, maybe.
I think he could be what you expect Lars Nootbaar to be on a consistent basis. I think, 30's a lot. I look at 30 for him the same way I look at 40 for Gorman. When he does it, I'll believe that he can do it. But until then, I'd be very skeptical. But he's done everything to prove to me that he should get everyday opportunities to find out. I don't think we should keep sitting here saying, well, what if when everyone's healthy, you should give him every opportunity to try and find out.
Burleson's a good player, man. By the way, one thing, T-Bone, I do want to get your thoughts on this. Something that I will be curious on moving forward. He has not hit the breaking ball very well so far this year. He's batting 191 against it and has not slugged very well against it so far this year. That could be an adjustment that we see pitchers go to and throw him just constant breaking balls. So keep an eye on that. That's something worth monitoring because he's been crushing the fastball so far this year.
Yeah, I don't know if he can be a 30 home run guy because I just don't know. 30 home runs, I think you have to have raw power. And I don't think he has elite raw power like a Nolan Gorman does. Nolan Arenado, when he was right a couple years ago, Paul Goldschmidt have. But he's got solid power to where he could be a 20, 25 home run guy. And there, to your point, there could be maybe a year where he goes through a hot stretch that ends up propelling him to that 30 home run mark. But I don't see that as like a consistent basis.
One of his closest comparisons for the style of hitter that he is so far this year is Alec Boehm from last season. That's an interesting one.
I'll take that.
Alec Boehm did not strike out very much. This year, by the way, he has 23 doubles, leads all of Major League Baseball. I would sign up for that. I would definitely sign up for
How many home runs?
Like that.
You have Boehm's numbers up last year? How many did he hit last year? Home runs?
Last year, he had 20.
Yeah, that feels like Burleson.
He did that in 145 games. Yeah, if Burley got to 20, 25, I think you're feeling pretty good about that. All right, last one here. Guys, how would you feel about trading Goldie Arenado and Helsley at the deadline, no matter what, and shifting Burleson to first, Walker to third, and Matz to closer, then using that new payroll to sign an elite starter and a veteran outfielder in the offseason? Let's set that last part aside.
Because it's not going to happen.
Because there's just a lot of variables here. I'm not moving Jordan Walker to third. If I'm going to move people around,
Gorman would go to third, and Donovan goes to second.
Exactly. Burleson to first
money on
makes
an
a lot of
outfielder.
sense. I don't think Matz becomes a closer. I think in that scenario, you're talking about like JoJo probably as your closer. But Walker to third would be the one piece of this that I really do not like. Walker's an outfielder. Walker's either an outfielder or a first baseman, and I think it's too early to move him to first.
I would do it. I think I'm going to fall in line with this once we get closer to the trade deadline. I think that is how you start to get me really interested in this team, because now you're taking steps towards what this future is going to look like rather than feeling like you're sitting stagnant.
Yeah, I don't think like that scenario as a whole right now, you can't trade Arenado. One, he's not tradable. Two, you're selling at a low point, so you might as well just hold on to him. But in that scenario, if you did do it, and I would be on board with that if you're in sell mode, I don't think you move Walker to third. I'm with you, BK. He's too athletic, too talented, and too strong of an arm to not have roaming the outfield and right field. Nolan Gorman fits better at third base, I think. You move Donovan to second, or maybe that's where you end up putting Tommy Edman when he comes back to his kind of natural position of second base. But I don't see Walker being a infielder for the Cardinals.
All right, coming up next. Yesterday, I thought Katie Wu said something really insightful when we had our conversation with her that we have each and every week on BK and Ferrario. She said one thing that she's had to do this year is change the way that she is analyzing the team day to day because of the status of the National League around them, honestly. The Cubs currently hold the third wild card spot. They are a half game back of San Diego. Those teams are 1 or 1.5 games ahead of the Cardinals, despite the Cardinals being 3 games below 500 right now. I want to talk to you guys, the listeners. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. How are you evaluating this team? Do you find yourself saying they're just not very good because they're 3 games under 500? Or are you looking at the standings and saying to yourself, I understand they're not a great team, but we're right in this thing as a playoff contender? I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We'll give you ours coming up next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. When you walk around day to day right now, do you feel like you have the same amount of energy as you did 3, 5, 7 years ago? If the answer to that question is no, you might want to give Victory Men's Health the chance. VictoryMen'sHealth.com is the place where you can go to learn a little bit more about how they're going to unlock your inner champion. You go over there, you can click on the tab at the top right that says book now, and when you do so, it's a super easy process. You put in your name, email, phone number, tell them a little bit about what you're dealing with right now. They will give you a call. They'll get you set up with that first consultation, and in that first appointment, they're going to take a lab draw kit, and they're going to find out, okay, where are your numbers at? Where are your micronutrient levels right now? Do you potentially have low testosterone? Is it something else that they can help you out with? And they're going to use their scientific-backed data to be able to tell you exactly what they can do to get you feeling like your best version of yourself. It's all available for you at Victory Men's Health. They've got 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check them out right now at VictoryMen'sHealth.com. All right, so we had a really good conversation yesterday with Katie Wu of The Athletic. If you guys missed it, check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
Alex, she said something during our conversation that I think I've been grappling with over the course of this season. She said her analysis of this team has had to change in the way that she talks about them because of the way that the National League has performed around the Cardinals. If the National League right now was the equivalent of the American League and the third wild card was, like, instead of it being the Twins at 33 and 27, it was the Cubs right now at 33 and 27. That was the last wild card spot. You would right now be about 5 games back in the wild card. And that feels like where the Cardinals should be, given the fact that they're 3 games below 500 today. But that's not the case. As of today, the Cardinals are 1 game back of the Cubs in the wild card spot. They're tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're only a game and a half back of the Padres for the second wild card spot in the National League right now. So when you have that context, it's really hard for me to get on the air every day and be like, man, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. This team is terrible. They've lost 4 or 5. The defense is bad. The rotation doesn't have a 5th starter. The offense is relying way too much on the ancillary pieces to give them power, and eventually this is going to come back down to earth, and it's going to be a problem for them. Like, all of those things are true. Defense is an issue. And yet, you're 1 game back of the wild card today. And so I do wonder, I am kind of where Katie's at, where I change my analysis based upon where they're at in the standings. I think a lot of Cardinals fans, though, are not there. I think a lot of Cardinals fans say they're 3 games below 500. This is not a good enough product. They need to be better, and it is time for change. And I understand that. I really do. And I'm not telling you right or wrong. I just think there's different perspectives on this. The text line is 314-399-9646. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. I do want to hear from you guys on this. Alex, where do you stand on that disconnect that seems to exist right now, in part because of the 3rd wildcard spot, but it would exist even if there were 2 wildcard spots in the National League, because they would only be a game and a half back of that spot as well. The National League being bad feels like it's changing a lot of people, including myself, their analysis of this Cardinals team.
Yeah, and I fall more in the line of the second option that you painted, because I look at this team and it's hard for me to just judge them this season. If this was a team that's had success in the past couple of seasons in terms of getting to the playoffs and winning a series and feeling like, okay, they're building something, then I'd look at this and say, hey, you're a team that has proven the ability to just get in and do some damage, and you can go from there. I can't just look at a team that I'm a fan of and sit there and say, well, they're 1 game out of a wild card spot, and if you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Because the lack of growth is frustrating to me with this team. Because since 2019, the last time they won a playoff series, it feels like it's the exact same narrative. Whether they go on a 17-game win streak down the stretch or they find a way to squeak into the playoffs, somehow we're rooting for this team to just get in and then get swept in the wild card. And then we're talking about, well, what kind of improvements need to be made? How does this team improve themselves? And then the next season, we get sold the same sales pitch of, well, we've got all of these young players that are coming up. We've got our veterans in place. We'll make a couple of tweaks and we'll build from there. It doesn't feel like there's any progress with the Cardinals. It always feels linear, to where it's every season, it's get into a wild card spot, it's get bounced, and then start it over again, where I see other teams making strides forward. And that's why I look at one season and say, cool, you're 3 games below 500. Cool, you're in the wild card spot, but nothing is going to change with this team.
Out of curiosity, who are some of those teams that you would point to that do operate the way that you're suggesting in the National League?
In terms of operation, I'm not sure, because I
think this is a baseball conversation that we're having that is specifically centered across the Cardinals because they're our local team. There's just not a lot of teams that are operating as aggressively as we would like to see. I think the Phillies are that team. They also operate on a different kind of budget than the Cardinals do. I understand people get frustrated with the budget, but the Phillies and the Cardinals are not on the same path.
And I take the Dodgers out of that conversation too. I look at Milwaukee and I say, how does this team always find themselves into this position? And maybe it's not so much about spending money via free agency or making the trades.
Because they said kind of some of the same things that the Cardinals did. The young players are coming. Yeah. We're going to get better with internal improvements. We're going to make a couple of changes here or there. But there's work.
and they back it up, too. Yeah, they back it up. But I also look at what Milwaukee did with Willie Adames. They basically said, we have a hole, and we need to fill it. What did they do? They made the trade. San Diego's another one. Now, I know San Diego's kind of in the same spot as you, but San Diego saw a weakness with their team this season, and what did they do? They were aggressive. Whereas the Cardinals, it's the same narrative. I know that when there's a hole, they're going to say, well, we have internal options. They get to the trade deadline, and they say, well, we didn't really find the price that made sense for us.
Do you think Cardinals fans would feel better about the team if they operated the way that the Padres did, but had the same success that the Cardinals have?
I think so, because I feel like at least you got a front office that's willing to be aggressive when they need to be aggressive.
Because here's what the Padres have done. Let's go back to 2019. 70 wins. They went to the NLDS in 2020. That's when they beat you in the wild card. They won. It's just a weird season, but they won 37 out of the 60 games in the regular season. They got swept out of the DS. 79 wins, 89 wins, 82 wins, 32 wins. The last time that they won 90 games or more was 2010. So, they do feel aggressive, and there was a story the other day where they're interested in the White Sox other best young pitcher, Garrett Crochet. And so they're just constantly churning out their roster, but it doesn't feel like it actually leads them to anywhere of significance. It feels kind of similar to the Cardinals, just going about it in a different way.
Yeah. And I think, to your point there, Alex, I think where frustration comes is the lack of a push. You know, what I mean by that is, when you talk about the San Diego Padres, even though they haven't hit the 90-win plateau, what would I say of that team? I'd say they're pushing for a World Series. They're trying for a World Series. Arizona was a team that I thought of when you brought this up. And not so much because of a long record of success, but you look at how they kind of, in 2022, they're I think 10 games below 500, somewhere in that mark. They get internal improvements. They end up getting to the World Series, and then they don't just say, hey, look at that, we made the World Series. We've got the pieces in place. No, they went out and signed 2 starters. They went out and they got Eduardo Rodriguez, who hasn't pitched for them, and it hasn't worked out. They went out and got Jordan Montgomery, but they signaled, we're in. We've got this money to spend now. Let's go. Let's push. Let's try and get there. Same with the Texas Rangers, I would say, and how they pushed aggressively to try and get back to playing in a contention. And I'm in the point where I say, no, I'm not changing my perspective on this team. I'm not judging them based on what the National League looks like. And it's twofold for me. One, I know what bad baseball is. Guys, this is bad baseball. This is a bad baseball team, and I'm not going to change my opinion of it. I don't care if they're 1 game back in the race. I don't care if they're 10 games back in the race. This is a bad baseball team below 500. I'm not changing my opinion on that. And the second reason for that is because I think the Cardinals are one of those organizations, and there are organizations like this across all sports, that the expectation should be higher for them because of their history. And the Cardinals are a team that should be always viewed as I'm not going to always say a World Series contender, because I think that's a little too much, but I think they should always be viewed as the class of the NL Central. And they have fallen off of that plateau, and it now belongs to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Chicago Cubs feel like a team that could be passing by them potentially soon. That's where I am just not going to lower my expectations. This should be an organization that is built to win 90 games every single season and be someone that can win the NL Central. And this is not what it looks like. This is not a 90-win team. So I'm not changing my opinion on, even though this is a down year in the NL, I'm not hearing it. This is not a good baseball team. How much of what you're saying,
though, is about what they're doing this year versus the context of what we've seen over the last 5? Because I think if the Cardinals were coming off of, if you flipped the last 2 seasons, right? If they were coming off of the 2022 season, where you get to the playoffs, you get beat by Philly, and this is what it looks like coming off of that season, I think our conversations are very different right now. But coming off of what was one of the worst seasons in the last 100 years for the Cardinals, I think that influences, fairly justified, it influences a lot of what we've been saying this year about the team. Do you guys agree with that? How do you feel like last year is influencing our conversations about this year's
It's
team?
not influencing mine at all. Last year's team was an abysmal baseball team. Yeah. That's a 90 loss. That was a 90 loss team that you saw last year. This team's not that bad. And in my opinion, it's not being skewed based on what I saw from last season. They have major holes on this roster, and that's not something that is because of the 2023 season. It's all been snowballing towards this effect, whether it was 2022, 2021, because they've had a shortfall of pitching for 5 years.
So then it is influencing what you're saying. Not last year necessarily, but the last 5 years is influencing what you're saying about this year's team, because that's the backdrop to everything that we're watching right now is this was always coming. Why didn't you see it?
I feel like last year was a sign of things to come if you keep doing this. That's why, and I don't use it as the reference point, because when people always bring up how negative I am and how I'm always so positive about the Blues, somebody somebody actually sent this in a little bit ago. 2 years ago, the Blues were 2 wins away and a goaltender getting hurt from beating Colorado when we all thought they were dead. I don't think we've been able to say that about the Cardinals since, 2014? Like 2016 through 2018, you missed the playoffs by being like 10 games out in almost every situation.
They were pretty good in 21 and 22, and if things broke their way, you could have maybe gone on a little bit of a run. But I know that a lot of people disagree.
In 21, you were good because of a 17-game win streak. You got hot down the stretch. 2022 is one of those that I look at and I say, okay, progress. But again, you didn't pounce on the opportunity when you had 2 MVP candidates, which is why it's so infuriating looking at a team that's 3 games out of or 1 game out of the wild card and sit there and be like, oh my gosh, the Cardinals are going to be in. They're not going to do anything. And they're going to sit here and continue to preach the same damn message of, we've got all of these young internal candidates that are going to step up, and we were injured a lot this season. We feel like we're in the right space.
Somebody on the text line said, you guys are always so negative about the Cardinals. I respectively, sir, madam, I feel like I'm right down the middle with the Cardinals right now. I'm stuck in the in-between because T-Bone and Alex, I think it's fair to say, not are negative about the Cardinals, but they don't want to be sold a bag of goods about the Cardinals being a good team when they're 3 games under 500. And I think that's a pretty reasonable opinion to have, frankly. Especially, I do think it's okay if last year's results influence how you view this team. They sucked last year, guys. The Cardinals admitted that it was an embarrassing season for them. And so if you're thinking about it, and you're like, okay, so they're coming off of one of the worst seasons in franchise history, and now you're 3 games below 500, and I'm supposed to believe? Why? What exactly should make me believe? Oh, it's the 2 franchise cornerstones that are playing really well, except they're not. Those guys aren't performing at a really high level. So I get where they're coming from. I guess where we diverge a bit is, and this is not me settling, I promise, guys. I'm not carrying water for the Cardinals. I put value on getting to the postseason. I think that there is value in that. It's hard for me to put as much value on it, though, when getting to the postseason is winning 82 games. That's hard for me, even as somebody that does say that is meaningful to get there and to take your best shot at it once you do get there. And I don't know if this team as currently constructed can honestly say it has a chance. It kind of feels like last year's Marlins, where, yeah, they were an interesting team for most of the season and they were kind of in it. But then you get to the playoffs, they had won 84 games, they had a negative 57 run differential by the end of the season, and we all knew they had no chance of doing anything of value once they got to the postseason. They got there, they were swept out in 2 games, scored exactly 2 runs against the Philadelphia Phillies, and everybody now looks back and says, wait, the Marlins made the playoffs last year? And that's kind of how it feels about this year's Cardinals team. But you don't know until you get there, man. Weird stuff happens in the playoffs. Nobody saw last year's Diamondbacks getting to the World Series. Nobody.
Here's where I'd push back on that. I don't know if I saw them getting to the World Series, but I could see how they could make noise. Because I looked at their rotation, I said, holy crap, they've got Zach Allen and Merrill Kelly. And what matters in the postseason, it's not offense. Yes, I understand that you need to score runs because that is the name of the game. You score 1 run, you can win. You know what? It's pitching in the postseason. And I could look at the Diamondbacks and I could go, man, they've got a 1-2 punch in their rotation and they've got a lights-out bullpen. So I saw the formula for the Diamondbacks.
And their defense was incredible.
2 years ago, I saw the formula for the Phillies as the 6th seed. Now, did I see them winning the World Series?
But the Cardinals could trade for a pitcher that is every bit as good as Merrill Kelly, and Zach Allen is essentially your equivalent to some
And I think, to your point on us looking 5 years in the past, they haven't done it.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's what I was going to say.
That's a totally fair retort.
And to be fair,
but I can't judge them on something that they have not done yet. Now,
this is like getting pre-mad.
Sure, I said that about the offseason as well, and then they did basically what Alex said they were going to do. So it's hard for me to argue the other side right now because of how much history is backing what the Cardinals will not do, what John Mozeliak will not do.
And here's where it can change, but this is where I would push back against that, is I think if you're the Cardinals right now and you get to the trade deadline, and whether you're in the playoffs as a below 500 team or like right at 500, I don't know if you can even convince yourself to give up the assets for a number 2 starter. Because like the teams that we just mentioned, and look, it is such a small sample size because this playoff format's been around for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. The 2 teams that got in and were the 6th seed and made all that noise and got to the World Series had the top 2 arms in the rotation already. Merrill Kelly and Zach Allen were not deadline additions. They were there. For the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola were there. Acquiring a number 2 starter at the trade deadline, forget the history of Mo of not making the big push for that kind of an arm. I just don't know if an organization as a whole is ever going to convince itself as the 6th seed or potentially being out of the playoffs at the time of the deadline of, hey, we should give up a lot of assets to go get a number 2 and get in as a number 6 and have a crapshoot of a chance as a
Unless
6
there's
seed
multiple years of
in the
control,
best of 3.
and there might be guys that are available in that range this year.
Maybe.
Like it's like a Garrett Crochet, for example. He appears to be likely to be traded.
I mean, didn't they have the chance to do that with Dylan Cease?
Yeah.
And they didn't.
No doubt. And there's other teams that are going to be more aggressive for those pitchers. Like the Yankees will probably be super aggressive this year at the deadline. I would imagine that the Phillies are probably going to be super aggressive at the deadline. Dodgers as well. Like there's other teams that are more in it than you are that are likely to be more aggressive than you are. All of that fair. I just, for me, like to give the answer specifically on why I sound more positive on the Cardinals right now, I don't know that we view the team all that differently, the 3 of us. I think it is about how we view the value of this kind of a team. To me, if you have a chance to get into the playoffs, you got to take that chance and then see what happens when you get there. And it might suck. Like you may get bounced out in the first round, and then we can talk about that whenever they get there. But I think if you have a chance, I think you got to take it. And that's the way that I am speaking about the Cardinals in 2024, for better or for worse.
And I think for me, because I get labeled as so negative about this team, I just want to get excited about a Cardinals team again. And I haven't been able to get excited. And I don't mean like, oh, 2021 was exciting. I want to get excited about a team that I know can be there on a consistent basis. And I haven't been able to say that for a long time with the Cardinals. I can't get excited for a team that just gets gifted a playoff spot and then loses 2 straight.
I just can't even convince myself at this point watching them they're worth investing in. That's where I am, and that's why I'm different on, like, sure, you're making good points. Maybe they could go out and trade for a number 2 starter that has control. Guys, I wouldn't give up anything. Their future looks so bleak right now in terms of what we're looking at long term, in terms of what they have in the pitching pipeline. Most of their top prospects are up here right now, and guess what? They're not winning baseball games right now. So their future to me looks bleak looking at what's in the system. And I understand that can change pretty quickly based on what you do in the draft. But for right now, it looks pretty bleak. And for a team that doesn't feel like it can make any noise in the playoff, let alone make the playoffs, they're not worth investing in right now. They've got to get hot to earn the right to be invested in. And right now, they're not a team that you should be spending capital, your prospect capital, to improve right now at the trade deadline.
Let's hear a little bit more for you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We'll do a quick segment, more reaction from you guys on this coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Hey, guys. I'm more concerned about our future. I know it's win and get in and see what happens. I understand that. I don't care about getting in this year. We're 3 games below 500. I say we go for it. We get rid of Goldie. We get rid of Arenado. We get rid of Helsley. Let's get this future going. Let's have some hope for the future. We have no hope for the future right now.
So that was Steven on the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. We're talking about how you evaluate a team right now in Major League Baseball that's 3 games below 500, but is only a game out of the wild card standings. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Want to hear from you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Steven makes an interesting point there about quote-unquote going for it, but not in the direction that you would think. He's saying go for it in terms of selling off assets. Here's the problem with what Steven had to say there. It's an interesting idea. Trading Goldie really does not do a whole lot for you in terms of your long-term future. You could get a little something for him, sure, especially with the way that he's been hitting lately. Ain't going to be a ton. I don't think that's changing the outlook of your future. And if we're just being honest, he ain't going to be here next year anyways. So your 2025 future, forget 2027 and beyond. Your 2025 future already is probably without Goldie at first base. It's probably going to be Alec Burleson at first. And I don't think that's a problem for them. That's fine.
The time to trade Goldie was last year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Third base is where it becomes really interesting. He said trade Nolan Arenado. Guys, I've seen this on the text line a lot. There's 2 problems with it. 1, he's got a no trade clause, so he gets to decide where he goes. And 2, who the hell's taking on that deal right now? If you're another team, like we want to get rid of Nolan Arenado locally. People seem to be in that range right now with him. Why is another team going to be interested in taking on a guy that is 33 years old with multiple years remaining at $35 million per year that has shown signs of decline defensively now and for 2 years? And offensively, it looks like he's fallen off of the cliff where he does not have power anymore. He already did the thing where you become a pure pull fly ball hitter. That's what he was in his prime, and that's what guys do at the back end of their careers to extend it a little longer. So why is another team trading for Nolan Arenado to take what is now a bad contract from you to put it on their books? I just don't see it. And certainly, even if they did, I don't see you getting anything of significance in return for that, and you're probably going to have to retain salary. So I don't know, man. I see why people would be calling for that, but I don't think it really alters what your future outlook is by any stretch of the imagination. I think it just kind of changes the names in the lineup on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not that I don't think you're not in a position to trade pieces to bring in massive assets that make you a better and deeper team with top prospects. You don't have those players. I mean, Goldie's not getting you anything. Arenado, you would literally have to trade only to the LA Dodgers because of what BK said, and they're not offering you much. The time to do what we're talking about was last offseason or 2 years ago. But at the time, you were hoping you were competing, and because, am I mistaken, did Nolan Arenado get floated to where he could have got traded last year to the Dodgers, and you could have got Bobby Miller in return? You had the chance was last year, and you stuck to it. Now you're at the point where Ryan Helsley's the best thing that you're going to be able to offer and get something in return, which is good, but it's not to the level of, oh, man, our team is in a great position now. You've put yourself in this spot.
And I'm in, if they're not in it at the deadline, I would be all in favor of trading Ryan Helsley. It would be the smartest thing this team can do. So you don't build around relievers. You build around position players and starters. Relievers fluctuate year to year. That would be the first guy that I would be listening to, and you could get a ton for him. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. All right, let's hear from Courtney here on the Mic Drop feature.
See, BK, the issue I have is that when you act like them being 2 games out of a wild card spot is a great thing, we're supposed to lower our standards, which was used to be winning World Series. Then the standards started to get lower when we wasn't winning World Series anymore to just winning the division. And guess what? Now that we can't even do that, now we're supposed to lower our standards again and be happy with being 2 games out of a wild card spot. So we're supposed to be like, let's hand out juice boxes and orange slices to the front office and to the team for being 2 games out of a wild card spot. What's next? Next, we're going to be lowering our standards and saying, we can't even make a wild card spot. Let's be happy that we're 500.
Courtney, speaking my language right now. You know, the moment you came to St. Louis, it started to just be, let's just get in.
You know what year I got here?
I know exactly what year you got
2016. You know how many times the Cardinals have won the division since 2016?
0.
2.
Oh, yeah, they won it in
2019 and 2022. 2 times. They won in those years 91 and 93 games. Courtney makes a fair point. It's a totally fair retort to everything that I've said so far, is that the bar has been lowered. It's impossible for me to argue otherwise, because you look back at what the Cardinals were from 2000 through 2015, a 15-year stretch. They were arguably the most consistent and best regular season team in the sport. When you add in a couple of World Series, hey man, there are very few teams that would have traded their 15-year stretch, or that wouldn't have traded their 15-year stretch for what you had. I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of people mad.
Put the conductor hat on when you say it, though.
Okay. Should I do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. You ready? This will soften the blow, right?
This will be good. This is your thumbnail for later, T-Bone.
You don't have Albert Pujols anymore. The truth of what made you special from 2000 to 2011 is that you had Albert Pujols.
Take the damn hat off. You look like an idiot.
Like, you had the greatest player in the world, and now you don't.
Yeah, but you know what you did when you had Albert Pujols? You said, we need to continue to make this team dominant. And you went out there and you made the trade for Scott Rowland. You made the trade for Chip Evans. I can't freaking do this, man. Like, you looked at that team and you say, we got Albert freaking Pujols. Guess what we need to do? We need to keep making this team better. You know why the Phillies are rumored? I can't even look at them, T-Bone. You know why the Phillies are rumored to be in the market for Kyle Tucker and Nick Castellanos, Randy Arozarena? Because they look at their roster and say, hey, we're a World Series contender. You know what we should do? We should double down on that and make our team even more dominant. That's what the Cardinals did from 2000 to 2015. And then 2016 was, the Cardinals way. Let's start drafting and developing and not using our assets to get those big time.
And even though you didn't have a Albert Pujols, you know what you ended up having?
Don't look at him, look at me.
2 MVP caliber players on your roster, and you missed on your window.
Yeah, and you
That's
stuck
the
with
other thing.
Waino.
I wasn't even here on, I think it was Friday, you guys had that conversation where you looked back and looked in, I think what was it? Each team that's gotten to the World Series has to have one
top 5 finisher or 2 in the top 10.
Mm-hmm. Guess what the Cardinals had? They had that. Yeah. They had that with Goldschmidt in 22.
In the top 5.
3.
Yeah. And then 2021, you had that with those guys. Yeah. Like, they had a win. Like, I understand it's not Albert Pujols, because you're right. Like,
dude, that's so annoying.
But you also
their bleeping window,
But you also had Tyler O'Neill, who was an MVP candidate as well. And we didn't think that was sustainable, but there were 3 guys that were like, holy hell. And guess what? You stuck with Adam Wainwright. You stuck with, who was your else you're starting? Miles Michaelis, who was somewhat good at the time for you. Steve, like, the rotation you had basically screamed, yeah, we'll win with offense, and it wasn't possible.
Yeah, it had their pitching staff had holes when they built the perfect offense.
And that's why I get angry about this team.
Don't you blow that whistle.
All aboard.
The Cardinals' winning window is leaving the station.
Who wants to ride BK's train in the mills? There's nothing to look at, but just hop on board. It's fun.
Man, what happened to the malls? He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, it's time for Tinder Tuesday on a Wednesday.
Yes!
Some Blues offseason talk next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care, taking care of our HVAC system, which I believe is 26 years old. When they came out for their maintenance program, they checked our unit. They looked at it like, oh, this thing's old, but we're going to get you through until you're ready to purchase that new HVAC system. And I am purchasing it this winter, and I'm doing so with Classic Air Care. Why? Because of the honesty that I get from them. I trust them. I had them come out and walk me through basically what would need to be upgraded with our HVAC system, which is a lot, but they told me what you you definitely need, what's just the bells and whistles stuff, making sure that I'm getting the most efficient HVAC system, but not spending all of the money. I love the honesty. I love the knowledge. I love what I get with Classic Air Care. I've been using them since 2016 when I purchased my first home. My dad's been using them for 30 years. There's tons of people listening right now that have been using them since 1926. Classic Air Care has been around that long, making people comfortable. If you're in the market for an HVAC system before it starts to get awfully hot out, give them a call today. They've got financing options, 18 months, 0% financing, or just get on the maintenance program and have them take care of your unit through the heat and the cold in the wintertime. Check them out, Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Chair Hendricks here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals lost to the Astros yesterday 8-5, and they look to avoid being swept in the three-game set with the Houston Astros later on here today. 1:10 will be first pitch. Miles Michaels will get the start for St. Louis. This Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's time for a Tinder Tuesday on a Wednesday. You guys know the rules.
Yeah.
It's very simple. You have two options. You can either swipe to the right or swipe to the left. Just like on Tinder, there's technically a third option.
What's that?
Super swipe!
Wait, it's the right you like them, left you don't.
Yep. Right is if you like it. Left is if you don't.
Super swipe is
We're going through some of the free agent options for the St. Louis Blues as they had decided in the NHL to have 5 weeks off between when the conference finals took place and the Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah.
So
smart.
Here we are. This is our Blues content for today. Alex, we've had a lot of conversations today about Jake DeBrusk, player. We've talked about him, honestly, for the last year or two. Played with the Boston Bruins. Pretty physical, 27 years old, got to free agency at a very young age, consistently like a 20-goal scorer, 40 to 50-point producer. In terms of point production, similar to Brandon Saad. It's probably what you would expect. The way he goes about it, a little different, a little more physicality, a little bit more grit to his game, a consistent top 6 forward. Alex, The Athletic is projecting a 5-year deal worth about $5.5 million per year. Are you swiping right on this for the Blues this offseason or swiping left?
I would swipe right on this, but I have a couple of contingencies with it. I think if I swipe right on this, one, I'm not signing him via free agency. I'm making the trade like Kerb's reference so I can sign him to a long-term deal. Because if I get him, I'd like to have him under contract at the price that I sign him now when this team's competing and the cap goes up. But I also would have to move on from Brandon Saad. I think if you're bringing in Jake DeBrusk, you're trading away Brandon Saad, and DeBrusk is a younger version of Saad to put into this lineup. I'm not going to bring Jake DeBrusk and pay him the money if I'm not shipping anybody out, because I don't think that's worth you spending $5 million now, even when you're hoping to have him when you compete. But if you can adjust this roster a little bit, I would take on a Jake DeBrusk because he's not a 20 goals or a consistent 30-goal scorer like he's done 27 twice. Here's the thing. He scored 19 goals this season, played 80 games, and his centerman was Morgan Geekie.
Hell yeah.
You guys know who the hell Morgan Geekie is?
Stop calling me that.
Well, I call you that when I get home, but usually there's an F word in front of it. He'd be moved down here playing with a Robert Thomas. And in the future, probably playing with a Dalibor Dvorsky. So I would swipe right on this.
See, it's funny. I think I would swipe left. I just don't know if he matches the timeline for the Blues. You mentioned it, if you have to get him, you have to move Brandon Saad. I feel like if you were in a spot to need a Brandon Saad type player, this was the guy you would go sign. And the Blues aren't there. Like, to me, they're going to get worse before they get better.
But what if he's a Brandon Saad type player in 3 years for you, and he's still somewhat in his prime?
I'll go find that player in 3 years. I just don't think he fit. Sure, but I don't think that he fits the timeline for the St. Louis Blues. So I'm basically paying this guy 3 of the 5 years of this deal while we're not competitive. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it matches up when I can give an opportunity like that to a Bolduc, see if he's someone like that can take this role internally rather than having to go out and spend money on this. I'm swiping left on DeBrusk.
What if I told you that you could trade a third-round draft pick for his rights at the draft and sign him to an 8-year deal at $5 million?
I'm looking at the photos. I'm not. This ain't eHarmony.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
For
giving
Jake
him
DeBrusk?
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
God, no.
Yeah.
Be 35 at the end of it.
You know.
For $5 million. In 3 years, when you're trying to sign that guy's going to be getting paid $6.5 to $7 million.
There's too many variables that go into a deal like that. I'm not giving 8 years. I'm giving to like Robert Thomas or a guy that's 23 years old that's coming up at the end of it.
Jordan Kyrou.
Like, I would consider an 8-year deal for Jake Neighbors whenever we get there to his RFA rights. I am.
The only reason I'm suggesting that.
I would swipe left on that so fast.
The only reason I'm suggesting that 8-year deal is because you're going to keep the AAV low.
But they have so many young players that I'm not super worried about the AAV.
I get it, but
the cap is not a problem for them right now.
No, I get it, but by the time you're ready to compete, he's 30 years old with 5 years remaining, and you're believing you're in a 5-year window, and that guy's making $5 million.
Yeah, I would rather go find the next Jake DeBrusk when he's 32. Like right now, he's going to be 28 years old. Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, Jake DeBrusk in 5 years will be 32 years old. I don't want to have that guy for another 3 years at that point. I want to either decide then to re-sign him for a year or two or move on to the next younger version of Jake DeBrusk. As for the 5-year deal at about $5.5 per year, you could easily talk me into this, man. It would require them to move on from exactly one of their top 6 forwards. Brandon Saad, Jordan Kyrou, Pavel Buchnevich, just one of those guys. You've got the money to be able to spend there, and they're going to need to replace that production somehow. Eventually, you're going to be looking for this player. And if you just want to get him into the room, you think he's a good fit, you like the makeup, you like the style of play, I think he is exactly the type of player that I would want next to Dalibor Dvorsky or one of the guys that I would want to play alongside Zach Bolduc. I think their games could be kind of similar. And it's good to have multiple of those guys in your lineup and for, honestly, Bolduc to just learn from him. So he would be a guy that I'm swiping right to. Alex, next one up here. Anthony Duclair. I feel like he's been a free agent we've discussed here in St. Louis 3 of the last 4 seasons.
Well, yeah, he's been on like 5 different teams in 3 seasons.
And he's been on some good ones. Anthony Duclair, Alex, according to The Athletic, is going to be projected for a 4-year deal worth about $4.5 to $5 million. Let's call it 4 years, $5 million. You swiping right or left on Anthony Duclair at that contract?
Left. I mean, you're paying, that's a third-line player for you. You're paying $4.5 million. No way. I'll play Zach Bolduc for $750,000 this year.
What if I say Blues end up trading Brandon Saad? Does it change your interest?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I'll wait it out with my younger players. I just don't think Duclair does anything for you. Like, he scored 30 goals once, and that was with the Florida Panthers, which we've seen. Sometimes the Florida Panthers effect is a lot of really good players, but I don't think Anthony Duclair is what you would need for this team right now. Anthony Duclair, 28 years old, for $4.5 million. No, I'll keep my younger players in that position.
Yeah, and I'm swiping left too, because by the time you get out of this deal, you've got like 1 year left of it. So like I'm no interest there.
I can't remember for sure, but I feel like Alex has brought up the name of the next player before, and I'm swiping left on Anthony Duclair. I'm not interested in him. Warren Fogle, Alex.
Oh, yeah. Fogle.
He is projected, they call him McLovin.
Yeah, he did too.
He is projected for a 4-year contract at $4 million per year. So a little cheaper. You're getting a little bit of a discount from what we just talked about with Anthony Duclair. He's been with Edmonton over the last few seasons. He's mostly been in a third-line type of a role. He's like a 15 to 20 goal scorer at this point in his career, Alex. Doesn't really do a whole lot on the power play. He's almost purely an even strength player. He's going to play on the wing for you. Get you 30 to 40 points in any given season. Are you swiping right or left, Alex, on Warren Fogle, a 6'2", 200-pound left winger for the Blues?
So far left swiping.
Oh, okay.
You have this guy, and he's making less than $1 million. It's Alexei Toropchenko, and he's 4 years younger. You hope Toropchenko is already basically doing what Fogle did in his first couple of years in the NHL. Toropchenko had 14 goals last season, and that's 4 more than the year he had prior, and he's 24 years old. And he's 6'6", 220 pounds, and he plays on the penalty kill. No, I'm swiping left on this one. You've got this guy already.
Yeah, I'm swiping left as well. I don't think you need to go lock yourself into a 4-year deal with a third-line winger. I just don't think you're in that spot as an organization. So I would say swipe left.
All right. I was hoping for a little bit more optimism here.
You wanted
for
to super
winger.
swipe here?
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I almost super swiped left on that guy.
Really?
I love me some McLovin. Oh, yeah.
You want to hear some numbers? Okay. Fogle has the 3rd highest expected goals rate among forwards on the Edmonton Oilers, behind Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's a driver who fits well in the middle 6. And he does have some issues in the postseason where he doesn't really produce.
You know what that tells me? The Edmonton Oilers have no depth beyond their best 3 players.
That is a take you could have. This year in the playoffs, he was a -8.
Oh, good.
On the ice in 15 games.
Good.
He was playing about 12 minutes per night.
Yeah.
I'm swiping left
That's
as well.
called Alexei Toropchenko.
Alex, I think those are the forwards on the wing that would be of interest to the Blues in this year's free agent class.
Didn't bring up Sam Reinhart, man.
Yeah, do you need me to bring up the idea of signing Sam Reinhart to an $11 million per year deal for this team?
Can't win with that left.
Superstar.
Left.
Superstar.
Is there anybody else that you think is worth throwing out there?
No, this is the most depressing.
Jake Gensel, $9.5 million for 7 years.
I mean, sure, if I was ready to win, but you're not.
Jonathan Marchessault, 33 years old, 2 years, $6.5 million.
Oh, he's going to get more than that, too.
Tyler Toffoli, 3 years, $6 million.
I like Toffoli, but not for $6 million.
What about Patrick Kane? I'm sure a lot of Blues fans would be interested in him at 2 years, 5 per.
Jesus, no. Please, no.
Jonathan Drouin.
Nope.
Who was cast aside last year and is now getting a 4-year deal worth 5 per. Tyler
because
Bertuzzi,
he played on a line with Nathan McKinnon.
$5 million per year at 3 years.
I like Tyler Bertuzzi, but not for $5 million. Like, all of these guys are role players on teams that want to try and win a Stanley Cup. None of these guys.
Mantha, your boy.
I liked him at the trade deadline.
5 per.
Nope. This is the most depressing Tinder Tuesday ever because basically I opened up the app. I'm like, oh, cool. So I'm not going to find love today. And I closed the app. There's nothing here.
My every Tuesday.
Poor guy. Look at PK's face. He's sad.
It sucks, dude. I love doing these kinds of things for the offseason.
Now, if you do
This is not an interesting offseason for the free agency market for the Blues.
Now, if you do a trade Tinder Tuesday, then
we'll get to those. Especially after this year's Stanley Cup Finals. A lot of the time, the way that the sausage is made to kind of give people a little glimpse at this, because all the national media converges on one place, everybody's in the same area, there's a lot of buzz and rumors that start to percolate around this time of the year as they get into the same arenas. So you'll start hearing some stuff over the next couple of weeks, especially as we get closer to the end of the Stanley Cup Final. And that'll all kind of happen during these finals. But right now, man, there ain't a whole lot out there. And honestly, the only free agent that I'm particularly interested in is Jake DeBrusk. And it doesn't, like last year, I was actually interested in Ross Colton. This year, I like Jake DeBrusk. He's fine. Could help you. But it's like being interested in a middle reliever for the Cardinals. I mean, if they get him, great. If not,
so he's not going to play for them, basically?
That really matters. We talked about that for like 10 segments over the summer.
All right, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, what's the downside of this Nolan Arenado contract? Because it ain't feeling great right now. But next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Has ever thought about, what if I go to a funeral home and I'm not actually dead?
What?
You guys ever thought about that possibility?
Well, I mean, when you say you do that when you go visit, like for wakes?
Okay, first of all, well done. Second of all, I'm talking about like they think you're dead, but Alex is still alive. Funny, joke's on you.
Is this like the Doritos commercial where he's in his coffin eating Doritos watching football?
Yeah, basically.
I'm so busy, I don't have time to think about that kind of stuff.
The funny thing is, Alex is being so earnest when he says that. Like, that is 100% true for you. The reason why I ask is because a woman in Nebraska who was mistakenly dead at a nursing home was later found to be alive at a funeral home. Unfortunately, she's now really died. Constance Clance. I know there's a lot of up and downs.
If you could have told me what the name of this individual is, Constance would have been at least top 3 of the list.
Yeah, she's 74. Was 74.
Not anymore. Here you go, Constance.
She was declared dead at a nursing home near the state capital of Lincoln on Monday. So this took place a couple of days ago. The staff at the nursing home alerted the funeral home, and then the funeral home took her in. She was brought in, and they noticed about 2 hours later, homegirl's still breathing.
Was that like in the midst of the embalming process?
Dude. They quickly performed CPR, of course. She's taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, she was declared dead for a second time soon thereafter.
This is really dark of me to think of this, but so let's say Constance gets to the funeral home and the funeral home's like, oh my God, she's alive. They get her in the ambulance to get back to the hospital. She dies in the ambulance, and the hospital's like, what the hell? We sent this lady to the funeral home already. She was already dead.
Dude.
Funeral home's like, she was alive.
I've had some anxiety attacks recently. About
parenthood, man. Let me tell you, those happen a lot.
About what it's like to, not be around anymore. And this didn't help me. When I saw this story, I was like, damn, dude, my biggest fear in life is having a surgery, Alex, where they put you under, but you can still feel things, but can't speak to let them know that you're awake.
Oh, yeah. So Final Destination, you've watched it?
Oh, dude.
When she's getting her LASIK eye surgery and she's like, the doctor walks out. Oh, yeah. She's like awake for it all. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I've had those moments in colonoscopies, but then I'm like, well, technically it's just considered a prostate exam. So
this takes that just one step further of the idea of them like putting the final notch into your coffin.
Can I ask you're 31 years old, right? What the hell?
Dude.
Why the hell are you worried and having anxiety attacks about dying? You eat mushroom nuggets and drink green juice and run every day.
Might be something with the mushrooms.
If anybody should be considering death, T-Bone and I, all we do is drink coffee.
Yeah.
Well, you get to a certain age and...
Yeah, typically when you get to Constance's age.
If you're like me and you hurt your foot and you don't know how, then you should be concerned.
Yeah. T-Bone walked out of the show on Monday and he's like, I need to go get water. I haven't drank any today. That's the guy who should go home and have anxiety attacks about it.
True. I still haven't had a cup of water today.
I was a kid and I was thinking about, what that would mean for Luca. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Are you going to start crying right now?
I've got a lot of issues. All right, what do you want from me?
Man, I'm going to have 7 of them. You think I should be thinking about that? But I'm probably like, I probably get to sleep.
It's kind of an early midlife crisis I'm going through right now. Right?
We didn't get the gray hair.
If you need somebody to talk to, our executive producer, Mike Ryder, is always available.
Yeah, Ryder he's our guy.
Yeah, he's HR.
He's HR. He's social media. He's kind of our program director sometimes.
Yeah, he does digital for us.
Yeah.
He does any kind of graphics that you need. He's happy to build
does a lot of engineering for us too at times.
Yep.
He's everything, man.
Basically does everything.
So if
I'm
you
with Alex. I'm too busy. I couldn't talk to you, help you out, man.
So yeah, moral of the story: she died.
Way to go, Constance. Actually, the moral of the story
she was
is
alive. Then they thought she died. Then she was alive again. Then she really died. So,
honestly, the moral of the story is
my girl Constance.
Everybody should be reaching out and asking if BK's okay from now on because our guys over here having anxiety attacks of dying.
I'll be good, man. Everything's fine.
Do you cry into your mushroom nuggets?
No. See, when I'm eating, it's really like when I'm laying down. Just go to sleep at night. It's right before
it's supposed to be like the most relaxing
pillow.
Point of the,
all I can think of is
the day where I'm like,
what if I don't wake up?
I couldn't tell you how excited that guy right there to your right
I was gonna
is
say, technically,
to put his head on the pillow.
Technically, that's my opportunity to be like, oh, man, what if I don't wake up?
You might need to see somebody.
Probably.
Coming up next, what is the downside of this Nolan Arenado contract? Because boy, howdy, does it feel bad right now. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. All right, so what's the downside of Nolan Arenado's contracts? With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, we get this a lot on the text line. Guys, all the Cardinals need to do to make this stuff get better is that they need to trade Nolan Arenado. Once you do that, you get rid of the contract, you get that money on your books. They'll have $60 million for next year and beyond to spend that they're not currently spending, or that they are, rather, currently spending on Arenado and Goldie. Now you don't have to worry about it anymore after they trade him. In theory, that makes a lot of sense, Alex. I understand how people get there. However, that's not necessarily how this is going to work, because I don't know who the team is that's going to trade for Nolan Arenado. You look at his deal right now, man, it is not the easiest deal in the world to deal. He has a full no-trade clause, so he gets to decide if he goes to another team, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say there ain't a whole lot of teams that he wants to go to right now. And secondarily, dude, he's got multiple years left on his contract at $35 million. Is there another team that's taking that on willingly right now? Because Nolan Arenado has now, for the last 2 years, been a below league average hitter. And so far this year, he's been a below-average defender, at least by the numbers. I don't know if I'm all the way there, but let's say he's average defensively and is a below-average hitter that has no power anymore. That's not a guy that I'm giving up resources for to be able to pay $35 million a year. Alex, how are you feeling about this Nolan Arenado contract right now?
Bad, but, you're stuck. So it's just kind of one of those things you come to terms with, where you look at it and you say, you put all your eggs into this basket when you traded for Arenado, and when he opted in, you basically said, you're the face of this team. And this is where you're at right now. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if you have one guy making this money, but you got to have him be great at something. Whether it's defense, offense, leadership, you got to have something. And right now, I don't think Arenado falls into the good conversation of any of those pieces. So I don't think it's going to harm you in the long run, because you are going to open up the money from Paul Goldschmidt. When Miles Mikolas is off the book, you'll open up that money. So you're going to have money to spend with. And it's always good to have one type of player. But Arenado's got to figure his ish out. Otherwise, you're going to be in a bad spot because you're paying $35 million for a guy that doesn't fall in line with anything you need right now.
Yeah, I actually think if this ends up being what it is the rest of the way and it ends up being a bad contract, it's kind of contract that can set an organization back. That's what it is, in my opinion, because the Cardinals are an organization that can operate with two $30 million contracts. I don't remember who it was that we had the conversation on. I think it was 2 off seasons ago. And I remember every insider we talked to was like, I don't know if you can have 3 guys making $30 million.
Remember BT talked about that a lot on the Fast Lane.
Yeah, and I don't remember who it was we were talking about. My memory can't seem to figure out who it is.
It was the free agent shortstops at the time.
That's right. It was one of the shortstops.
Seager, Correa, any of those guys going out there and potentially signing one of those.
So if I all of a sudden have a $30 million bad contract on my books, okay, well, that means I've got one slot that's still available to fill there. But am I still able to build around a roster that has a $30 million below league average defender and below league average offensive player? That's tough. That is very tough for the Cardinals organization to build around long term. Trying to build a roster that can sustain what is a bad contract like that. I don't think it is a thing that is easy to build around. I think it is the kind of contract that if this is what Arenado is, and it certainly seems to be where this contract is trending towards, it's the kind of contract that sets the Cardinals back a couple of years because they'll have to get out from underneath the contract. And honestly, the way you do that is you just let it play out, and then you can finally start building back towards a winning window to where you can have 2 $30 million players that are actually productive players in your lineup. I think this is a huge deal for the St. Louis Cardinals, both in the short term and in the long term.
So right now, according to Spot Rack, their numbers can sometimes be a little wonky, but for the most part, they're pretty close to being accurate. Players that have an AAV of $30 million or more. This is position players that are $30+ million AAV. Curious, Alex, do you think this guy would be better or worse for the long term than Nolan Arenado? I just want to go through this to see how many of these guys we would rather have right now than Arenado. Forget positional.
For the remaining of their contract.
Yeah, just think about how you currently view the outlook for Arenado versus these other guys. I'm just curious how we feel about this. Aaron Judge.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Even with the injuries.
You'd rather have Mike Trout?
Even with the injuries, yeah.
He's still a productive player.
And when he's there, he's big for you. And I think there's a leadership on Mike Trout's side.
That's interesting. I think I would rather have Nolan Arenado.
This version of Nolan Arenado? No.
Fewer years, and less injury risk. But that one's interesting. I think you could go either way on that. There's legitimate arguments in favor of Mike Trout. Anthony Rendon.
Oh, I'd rather have
take Arenado any day of the week.
Francisco Lindor. That one's tough.
Oh, I think I would take Lindor because that defense is still really good.
He struggled mightily at the plate. I mean, they're similar, so it's kind of a 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. Carlos Correa. Correa's been really good.
I think I would take Correa.
I think I'd take him to
Corey Seager.
Oh yeah.
Manny Machado.
Yeah.
Rafael Devers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are the guys, the 11. We said 7 definitively we would rather have than Nolan Arenado. Arenado included in that, so there's 10 of them other than him that are making $30+ million per year. There's only like 2 or 3 that we'd be like, not sure. It's not good, man. That's a really bad place to be as an organization. These are the kinds of deals you cannot get wrong if you're a team like the Cardinals that operates within a budget. If you're the Yankees, you're the Mets, you're the Phillies, you're the Dodgers, you can work around this. But the only way the Cardinals can get around it is if they are 100% proven correct about their young guys. They need Gorman to be awesome. They need Donovan to be awesome. They need Nootbaar to take another step. And more importantly, they need Jordan Walker to be a franchise caliber player. If they get it right on all of those guys, you can make up for this because those guys are offsetting the cost. And now you can repurpose the Goldie contracts to be able to get an improvement in your rotation. But, dude, this is a massive problem for the Cardinals. Forget for just 2024. For the next couple of seasons, they are trying to work around Nolan Arenado being a below-league average hitter. And unless they get the young guys to take significant steps forward, it's going to hinder their plans. And it will come a point in time, either at the deadline or in the offseason, where they probably have to go to him and say, what do we want to do here? What's the best thing for everybody involved? Does it include you going elsewhere and us potentially eating some of the salary to make that possible for you? And then you got to talk to him about where he's willing to go. The best thing for everybody involved is that this is a weird 2-month blimp and maybe he is hurt and we don't know about it right now and that's affecting his swing. It's possible. That would be the best case scenario for everybody involved. If that's not the case, and this is just who Nolan Arenado is going to be, this is one of those contracts that you look at 1, 2, 3 years down the road and say, that was a big part of the downfall of the Cardinals in the early 2020s. Because he was brought here for a reason, to be an MVP caliber performer, and he hasn't been that since the end of the 2022 season. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, the Cardinals still have a need in their rotation right now for Steven Matz. He's getting ready to make a rehab start tomorrow in AAA. Is he for sure going to be that 5th starter, or do you see a need for him in the bullpen as well? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. More likely to happen is next year on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You give us a scenario. We'll tell you which one is more likely here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, which one is more likely? The Cardinals end up trading Nolan Arenado prior to the start of next season, or the Cardinals add a top 3 starter at this year's trade deadline? And a legitimate top 3 starter, not like they go out and add somebody who just by definition is one of their top 3 starters.
I say it's Arenado get traded. I don't see them pulling that one off, because you'd have to give up the necessary assets that the Cardinals are unwilling to trade away to get that type of pitcher. I don't see Arenado getting traded, but I'd say that's much more likely to happen than them trade for a legit top 3 starter.
I'll say it's more likely they trade for a legit top 3 starter, because I think we've seen them acquire 3s in the past. Like, I would call Montgomery a 3 when they got him, and he kind of molded into being a 2.
Kind of were gifted that, though, to be able to just have to give up Harrison Bader.
Yeah, well, if somebody wants to trade for Arenado, that would be a gift. I just can't see anybody making the move for Arenado. Who wants that bad contract right now? And like everybody will point to the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers have Max Muncy. You know what Max Muncy's doing? He's playing good baseball when he's healthy. He's hurt right now, but when he was healthy, he plays good baseball. So I would say it's more likely they trade for a top 3 starter.
I think it's a top 3 starter as well. Somebody in the YouTube chat, I hate paper straws, brought up the idea of trading for Garrett Crochet. I'm here to trade for Garrett Crochet. Now we get to the classic Anthony Stalterism of, what are you trading for for Garrett Crochet? Sure. That sounds awesome. Garrett Crochet is going to be expensive, dude. This is a guy with multiple years of club control remaining he's $800,000 right now. The White Sox could get a haul for him. Like, we're talking a Dylan Cease plus type of a haul because of the remaining control on a player like that, or a pitcher like that. So I would love to see them add that level of a starter. I think it's very unlikely. I think they're more likely to go the Jose Quintana type of a route, Luis Severino type of a route, like that kind of a pitcher that ends up being like a classic kind of number 3 starter.
Severino's too good for us right now.
I'm with T-Bone, though. I don't think there's anybody that's going to take on Nolan Arenado's contract that he would want to go to. I don't think a contender's taking that deal on right now, unless the Cardinals eat significant value, and I don't see them doing that.
I think if the team starts trading off pieces, Arenado's going to get pissed off and say, I want out.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of where you want to go.
And Mo should say to him, we'll play better, and I'd be happy to send you out.
Yeah. Very true. More likely to happen, guys, the next team to win a series in the playoffs, Blues or Cardinals?
Yeah, well, the Cardinals.
Huh? It's the Cardinals.
What?
To win a series? I mean, it's going to be a couple of years probably before the Blues get there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I have more faith in the Cardinals to win a series before the Blues. It's also easier for the Cardinals to do so. You get into a 3-game set of the wild card?
Yeah, I think it's easier for the Blues because they got a goaltender who could steal a series. I don't think the Cardinals have anybody who could steal a series for them.
Gorman.
Gray could make it easy by winning one game.
That's one game.
Gray hits 3 home runs.
I know, but you're halfway there.
Gorman hits 3 home runs. Gray has a great start. Boom. You're in.
Yeah, Benner wins you a game. You're 25% of the way there. For the Cardinals, you're 50%. Unless somehow they got a vibe.
I just think it's easier to win a 3-game series than a 7-game series.
Yeah.
As the worst team. So
I would say it's more likely Cardinals, but I don't feel good about that answer. Like, I could totally see where it ends up being the Blues, just because Cardinals can just back their way in, and I'd be shocked if they win a playoff series this year, but then I don't know what they do. You know, how would they deem? I assume they would deem it a success if they made the playoffs this year, and then they wouldn't tear things to the studs going into the offseason, but I don't know. So I would say more likely it is the Cardinals.
T-Bone, what do you got?
Guys, more likely to happen. All of the Cardinals' lefty bats, Donovan, Nootbaar, Gorman, Burleson, I don't think there's anybody I'm forgetting. Those 4 are on the roster and in the starting lineup for the Cardinals on a regular basis next year, or one of them is dealt to go get a number 2 starter.
They're all here. I think it's more likely they're all in the starting lineup next year. I think those guys are a big part of what they're building around. I think the one thing the Cardinals really have going for them, I found this to be interesting as we were watching the game against the Astros over the last couple of days. The Astros just don't really have left-handed bats. Like, they've got the best. Yordan Alvarez is amazing.
Kyle Tucker's pretty good.
But he's not in there right now. They don't have very many left-handed bats available to them, and I do think that makes it a lot easier to navigate that lineup than what you would otherwise expect, given the names that exist within the lineup. I think part of what makes the Cardinals special, potentially, they're not there yet, is the quantity of left-handed bats that they have and the potential quality of those left-handed bats. So I would say it's more likely that they end up being in the starting lineup next year.
I think it's more likely one of them gets traded. And I think Lars Nootbaar becomes expendable. If this is Burleson, if Donovan continues this, Gorman continues this, I think Lars Nootbaar becomes expendable.
The interesting thing is what they're going to do in the outfield. They're going to have to do something again in the outfield.
I don't know if Lars Nootbaar brings you in that number 2 starter, though, that T-Bone was talking about. That's the hard part. Yeah.
Could be a part of
Ivan Herrera, Lars Nootbaar might actually get you something.
Yeah, so I was curious because I just looked this up because I feel like the Astros are an example of having the right amount of left-handed bats. 2 of the best left-handed bats in baseball. So I went back and I looked. I was like, okay, who's a lefty that I might have been forgetting? It's Michael Brantley. They had Brantley in their World Series
that was a huge
run.
piece.
Yeah, so I would say I think they will keep all of them. I think they should look to move on from one of them. I think they are too left-handed heavy currently constructed. I think they can move on from one of them, and it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world.
Would you feel the same way if they had more right-handed bats off of the bench? Like if Thomas Ajacci becomes the player that they think he can be, and Prado becomes a player that can help you as a really solid bench option.
And I think if Contreras is back in the lineup, that's
and now you've got Ivan
strength of
Herrera
righty.
coming off of the bench as well. I think the bench could change that outlook, but that would be my one question: is like if they don't, if next year instead of Carpenter and Crawford on the bench, you've got Prado and Sajasi, maybe we feel a little bit differently about the left-handed bats that currently exist for them.
Yeah, maybe. It's an interesting point. I guess it just depends on when you get to the bench. The problem is like right now, the way the Cardinals view all those lefty bats, they don't want to pinch hit for them.
Yeah.
Like the only guy they pinch hit for right now that's left-handed is Ciani, which makes sense.
Sure.
And I think they did it for Carpenter when he was in the lineup the other day. But you're not pinch hitting for a Burleson. You're not pinch hitting for a Nootbaar. You're not pinch hitting for a Donovan.
Some of that's the options as well, though.
Yeah, but even then, like I still think it would have to be a great right-handed option coming off of your bench.
Pools type of
Yeah,
option.
if that guy was here, yeah, he'd pinch hit for them.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You give us a couple scenarios, we'll tell you which one's more likely. This one comes from the Bibas Sports Performance. I don't know. All right, Alex, more
Could
likely
you say
to
it
happen.
on the radio?
Bibas. I wonder if that's their business and it just comes through on the text line. I apologize. More likely to happen: the Blues trade up in this year's draft, or they end up selecting where they're currently slated to do so at number 16. Alex,
I think they should move up in the draft, but I think it's more likely they're just going to draft at 16 because I just don't think they're going to trade what it would take to move up. Frankly, I also don't know if the team is going to want what the Blues could offer to trade up.
Sure.
So I'll say it's more likely they take somebody at 16, but I do believe they should trade up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's more likely they select at 16. If recent history shows, it's just so hard to move up in the draft. It hasn't happened a lot in recent years, so I would say it's more likely they pick at 16.
And because somebody said that I don't know anything about the draft and the prospects in the NHL on the text line a little bit ago, BK, let me make this statement. I read the other mock draft today by The Athletic, and there were 2 very solid defensemen that fell in Scott Wheeler and Corey Pronman's mock draft to the Blues. Were they number 1s? No, but I think they're top 4. But I don't know anything about the prospects.
Man, I want a number 1.
Me too, man. Well, trade up into the draft. You can get one.
yeah, I'm sticking at number 16. I think it's much more likely they do so. I just think there's less movement in the NHL draft than in many others. Like the NBA, you got these teams that are moving and shaking all across the top 10. You see that a little bit in the NFL. I don't feel like you see a ton of draft trades, especially last year. You saw like none in the top 10.
We were told that there were going to be many, and
just not a
there were none.
There's not a ton of movement typically during the NHL draft until you get to like second, third round. Sometimes you'll see some player trades there, but otherwise,
I think it's a lot like because it's a lot like baseball, you know. And the reason I say that is you don't typically draft on a position of need. You draft what is the best available.
And the guys are so far away.
Yeah, that's the tough part. Football, like,
once you get beyond the top 5, the expectation is you'll see him in like a couple of years.
in
2,
football,
3
like
years
your
at best.
4th round pick could be a guy that's contributing on in the regular season. Like I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 3rd round pick.
I think if you draft the right guy, though, he could impact your team within a year. And that's why I feel so strong about trading up, because I do think that there's a couple of defensemen that could impact your team within the next couple of years, which by the time you're ready to contend, the guy could be already NHL ready for you.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. More likely to happen: Mizzou makes the CFP or the Blues make the playoffs next year.
Blues make the playoffs. It's not even close. Not even close.
I love my Blues, but
Drinkowitz is going to get back to doing Drinkowitz things and go like 7-5.
I can't deny what that team looks like. That's a pretty damn good looking team. So I'm going to say Mizzou's CFP.
I did see something today, and it was somebody, I can't remember who it was ranking like the best wide receiver rooms in college football. Mizzou was like
Burton's going to be like a
sixth,
top 10
fifth.
pick.
Yeah. I still say drinks and ends up getting them to like 8-4. So I'm going to say Blues playoff bound, baby.
Ask me that question on like July 10th once I see what their offseason looks like. The Blues.
It's clearly Mizzou.
No, pump the damn brakes on clearly Mizzou. How many times have they choked when they had a good team?
A lot.
Never. Not once. It's definitely never happened. Nope. You can't make me relive those days.
Could bring in football or basketball, whichever one you want to talk about.
Especially football. I actually think there's a really good chance that Mizzou's able to make a pretty significant run this year. They're getting back in with a potential defensive lineman that previously had said that he was going to transfer to Miami. Mizzou's kind of made him rethink.
Oh, they found more money, did they?
It's legal now. Totally legal now.
Yeah, sure it is. Now, where they're finding the money, I'm wondering is legal, but they're finding it.
It's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun season to be a Tigers fan, and we'll be chronicling it all right here for you on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK.
Let's talk Illini football.
Hell no. Coming up next, Michael Gersh was on the Bally Sports Midwest pregame show today. Gave an update on Jordan Walker, where things stand with him. We'll let you hear it next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals currently in action taking on the Houston Astros as they wrap up their 3-game set in Houston, trying to avoid being swept. And the Cardinals lead it 1-0 as they head to the home half of the third, thanks to an RBI sac fly from Michael Ciani. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, the independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, so Michael Gersh was on the pregame show on Bally Sports Midwest just a little bit ago, and I wanted to get some of his thoughts on the team. Sounds like most of it was centered, Alex, on the injury updates, right? Steven Matz, I would assume there's some on Tommy Edman in there, those kinds of things. So, and probably an update on Keenan Middleton would be my guess.
Mo sent Michael Gersh to do damage control. That's what this is.
He was also asked about Jordan Walker and what the latest is with him. He's having some success down there. He had the 1 home run. He's hit for a decent amount of doubles, but overall the power still isn't really there the way that they were hoping, and it hasn't clicked for him just yet. So here's Michael Gersh on his latest update with Jordan Walker and where things stand with him today.
I think Jordan's still trying to work through some things and trying to kind of find the swing that he had in the second half of last year when he was an above-average big league hitter. So he's working hard. He's a great attitude. I was actually down there last week, and he's in a good spot mentally and working hard with the coaching staff. And it just, we're still kind of waiting for it all to come together so we can get him going and hopefully get him back up here soon.
I guess a part of the equation is how he accepts the work and trying to get to where you guys want him, and you say he's doing that very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just where we want him. It's where Jordan wants him. Like, we all have very aligned incentives to get him back to the big leagues and performing like he was last year and like we know he can. So, yeah, his head's in a good spot. He's working hard, and we're optimistic.
How many times did he say working hard in that interview?
I mean, that's all he can do, right? Like, he went down for a reason. He was really struggling at the big league level. This was not the same thing as what happened last year. Last year, there were legitimate critiques from some Cardinals fans about, hey, was it really the right thing to do to send him down to work on his launch angle? And people hear that and they're like, oh, they're trying to change his swing path. I think a lot of it, and we've heard this since then, and I've talked with people down at the ballpark about it, is it wasn't so much his swing path, although that was something they considered. It was really about the pitch selection. Hey, what are the pitches that you can do damage with? Because that low and away slider, you can't do anything with that. You're not going to be able to pull that ball, first of all, and you can't really hit that for power. The fastball that's up and in, like, get around on the pitches that you could do damage with. Find what those pitches are and start swinging with authority against them. And I think we saw that for a little while down the stretch last season, and this year just hasn't been there. So they sent him down because he was struggling at such a high level. He was striking out all the time. It looked bad for him. Over the last month at the AAA level, he's had about 100 plate appearances. He's batting .265, which is fine. He's getting on base 31% of the time, which is okay. And he's got a slugging percentage below 400. Guys, he's not close right now. Like, as of today, I know the morning show does the thing, and I kind of fell into it, honestly, where you were like, he'll be back for his bobblehead day. He ain't going to be back for that. Right now, this is not a player that you can call up to the big league level because he has not accomplished what he went there to do. He went there to become the player that they expected him to be this year, and so far that hasn't happened, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I was against it. I understand why they're doing it. At some point, I think you just need to put him up at the majors and let him figure it out. But it's very evident that whatever was bothering him or ruining his progression was massive because he's not making any progress. Like, you're not seeing what they are hoping for. Part of me wonders if the Cardinals are just trying to make him something that he's not, and that's why we're here. But you got an idea in your mind of who Jordan Walker is supposed to be, and I don't blame him for not bringing him up because he's not showing the progress that you need. Right now, there's no power. He's continuing to struggle with certain pitches. He's continuing to struggle with certain pitchers. I wouldn't bring him up. I wouldn't bring him up until I'm in a definitive need for somebody in my lineup for a good stretch. But even then, if I'm still seeing Jordan Walker play like this, you stay down there. If you got to stay down there all season and then go through the offseason, fine by me, because you need to figure it out. The Cardinals need you to figure it out.
This guy's too important to rush him. You can't get it wrong here this time. This has to be all right, last year you came up, you went down, you came back up again, and you hit the ground running. The same thing has to happen this time. And this time there's no looking back. It is once he gets back to the big league level, he's here. And he's going through everything that comes with that. There will be struggles at times. There will be moments where he goes through an extended slump, and they got to stick with him through those. And so right now, it's about getting him to be the best version of Jordan Walker. Whatever that looks like. That may mean for the here and now, there's not as much power as what we were hoping for. Maybe that is something that I know we had last year 20 home runs between AA and AAA and the big league level. I hear you. 16 of those came at the major leagues. So there should be more power than what we've seen. He's shown it. But maybe that's just not going to happen this year. It is what it is. Can he get back to being like a 275, 280 hitter that gets on base at a pretty decent clip? Because at least that's a valuable player. That can be an above league average hitter right now. That can be in your lineup on a regular basis. It puts Alec Burleson back to the designated hitter spot. It lengthens your lineup a little bit. That version of Jordan Walker helps you. But right now, he's not that guy even. Right now, he's just a below average hitter in every respect. And until he becomes somebody that you can trust and that you can put into the lineup and that you feel like he can be a confident hitter, he ain't going to be here for a while.
Yeah, and I don't think it is the worst thing in the world if he has to sit in the minor leagues for the entirety of the season or a big chunk of the season. Because you're right, we talk about this with certain players of, okay, you can send them down to work on things, but at some point it's sink or swim at the big leagues. The next time he's up, it is sink or swim at the big leagues.
Yeah, there's no more going down.
Because he's been down twice now. So there is no more, okay, well, we've got to send him back down. It's where they were with Nolan Gorman early in the year. It was, okay, do you send down Nolan Gorman? And the answer was, no, Gorman's got to figure it out at the big league level. And look, he did. Nolan Gorman is a big leaguer. We just know he goes through massive dips where he's really bad and then he is really great to where he's just hitting a ton of home runs. The next time Jordan Walker comes up, it is for good. It is no more a conversation of, well, is he going to make the team out of spring training? Are we going to have to send him down if he goes through struggles? No, the next time he is up here, it's because they think he is seasoned enough. He has learned his lessons at AAA, learned what was getting him out, figured out what was wrong with his swing mechanically, and he can be up here for the long run for the long run of his career. So I don't care if he sits at the AAA the rest of the season to get things kind of worked out. They should not rush him because you're right, he's too important.
So this comes from a 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, why is it that the Cardinals can't develop players when they get to the major league level? I don't understand it. I think we have seen too much evidence to the contrary on that we have to view this as a Jordan Walker problem at this point. Because Nolan Gorman has developed. Pretty good player, guys. This guy is a 830 OPS this season. He still has his moments at second base where it doesn't look pretty. Saw a couple of those last night.
Yeah, but he wasn't a second baseman coming up.
And he's hit 14 home runs this year. He is the player that they projected him to be. This is exactly the player that the Cardinals projected him to be. Now, you can determine whether or not you like that player. Like, you can say, I don't like having a below-average defensive second baseman that hits for a bunch of power but strikes out all the time. That's fine. That is more of an aesthetic thing than anything else. He's a valuable player in their lineup. Mason Wynn came up last year at the end of the season, went through some real struggles, and this year came in and looks like a top 5 shortstop in the National League already. The Cardinals deserve credit for that. Alec Burleson last year came up, and I remember the texts. Whole lot of texts that said, this guy's not any good. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Burleson looks like a pretty damn good player, guys. He's a slightly below league average defender probably in the corners, in the outfield, but a well above league average hitter. Lars Nootbaar's been a good productive player for them. Brendan Donovan's been a good productive player for them. They've done okay with a lot of these guys now. The players that were projected to be good mostly have been. Mostly. There are exceptions, obviously, to that rule. At some point, we got to look at this and say, Jordan Walker's got to take control of his own career. This is now on him, guys. These other players have figured it out. Gorman went through some significant slumps. Wynn had a really tough end of the season last year. Walker's going to get there. I'm still very confident that he's going to be a good player because of what we saw last year and because everything in the minors suggests that he will be. But eventually it's up to him. Now he's got to go out there and make the necessary adjustments. I think what we've seen so far is maybe he's a little bit of a slow adjuster. Because last year it took him a little bit of time, and this year it's taken him a little bit of time. Whenever he gets there, I think it's going to lock into place, and we're going to be happy with the results.
Yeah, I think the people that will still complain that the Cardinals broke Jordan Walker, they're losing that ability to complain about that and use that as an excuse because of the development of all of these players. And I do think you have to look at a player that does not get a call-up when you have an injury to Lars Nootbaar, and instead Jose Fermin gets called up because they view his development not going successfully, to whereas all of these other guys, when they've gone through bad slumps or haven't looked like they're at the major league level. I mean, Nolan Gorman at the beginning of the season was not looking good. I even brought up sending him down. He figured it out. Jordan Walker did not figure it out in the offseason. He did not figure it out at the beginning of the season, and he still hasn't figured it out at the minor leagues. At that point, you have to start looking at the player.
I think some of this, like somebody else on the text line said, BK can bring up Gorman, but what about their cold dead hands player and Dylan Carlson? I think a lot of that was injuries. And I think a lot of it was we viewed him as something that he wasn't. I don't think Dylan Carlson was ever expected to be a star. Never. Not by anybody outside of St. Louis, at least. And in St. Louis, he got built up into a star because he was batting cleanup for them in a playoff game in 2020 and then had a really solid, good rookie season. Carlson was expected to be just a really good all-around player. Now, he has not become that, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it, and I think some of that is also on him. But he doesn't hit the ball hard. He never did. He is not very good against right-handed pitching, really never was. And I think his defense has taken a little bit of a step back, and I think injuries are a big part of how he has not developed the power that they thought he would at the big league level. So you add all of those things up. I think that's why Dylan Carlson has not become the player. But again, some of that goes back to the player. It's not all on the Cardinals. Sometimes the players don't work out for whatever reason. So it's now on Jordan Walker, and he's got to take his career into his own hands. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll hit the rewind for you coming up next year on 101 ESPN. I got to tell you about why I exclusively bet over on the Circa Sports app. Alex, they recommend. Go check them out. Go check them out on FanDuel. Go check them out on DraftKings. They believe that you're going to come back to Circa Sports in Illinois. You can download the app today. It'll be at your fingertips. It's the biggest sports book in Las Vegas, and now we can get it in the state of Illinois. I'm looking at the Oilers and the Celtics for game one of their respective series, Alex. The NHL Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals. If I bet on those, just straight up money line, Oilers, Celtics, over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, I put $100 down, I win $200. If I do that exact same bet on the Circa Sports app, I'm getting $215. I'm getting better odds. I'm winning more money when I bet with Circa.
So what you need to do, you need to make sure you're bringing in the most money possible. Maybe you're that big gambler like me and you make those big parlays or future bets. It's all done at Circa Sports Illinois app because you're bringing in the most money possible. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, we opened up the show today by talking about the Cardinals being in a bad spot. They have now lost 4 of their last 5 games heading into today's game, in which they are currently leading the Astros 1-0 in the bottom of the 4th inning. Big thanks to Brandon Crawford, who I said earlier today.
What?
You can expect a big game out of him.
Who had that on their bingo card?
Me. This guy right here. I predicted exactly that. So Cardinals up 1-0 today. Give it time. We'll see how long
that was the tone.
Yeah, Michaels has looked pretty good so far.
They've lost 4 of 5. The offense has been a little up and down. They're relying exclusively at this point, basically, on the home run ball. Alex, where do you stand right now with St. Louis Cardinals? 28-31, game back of the wild card. Where do you stand with this team?
They're a mediocre team that I will not invest in. I can't invest in them. I know what's going to happen. If they pull off a victory today, they win 3 of 4 against Colorado. BK is going to come in on Monday with that stupid conductor hat on and be like, "Oh, I never got off board. The Cardinals are back."
Was that a Mickey voice?
Yeah, kind of. Kind of Mickey Gingerbread from the Shrek, whichever one.
Oh, that's a good call.
It was a really good one. I can't invest in them because this team is too sporadic. One thing breaks, the other thing works. One thing's good, the other thing's not good. I don't see this team as anything else other than a third wild card team that's going to get beaten in 2 games of a wild card series. So I hope they make the playoffs because playoff baseball is fun and playoff baseball is good for all of us. but I will not invest in this team because they prove to me that they can't beat consistently the other mediocre teams.
Yeah, they're just not a sustainable model, in my opinion. I've said this all along. I cannot buy in until I see Goldie and Arenado playing well. And as we mentioned earlier, Goldie's playing better, but Goldie actually looks like he could potentially be fixed to an extent. He's getting dragged down by Nolan Arenado, who's not playing well, who had, I don't know if they ruled that an error or not, but had another misplay at third base. Might have been infield single because
then he got the double play to get out of the inning.
And the reason I say that is BK mentioned this, I think, in the office. I don't know if he said it on air earlier in the show or not, but Burley and Gorman are this team's best hitting players right now. You know what I know is not going to sustain? Those guys playing at the level they're at right now. I think both are very good big leaguers, but both aren't going to be guys that can carry an offense for a whole season like a superstar can, like Arenado and Goldie are supposed to be. And the Cardinals' pitching's just too thin right now. So I can't invest in this team. They feel like a team that is kind of in it just because the whole NL sucks, but they shouldn't be a team that you should have much hope for.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern right now is, is this all built on a house of cards? And what I mean by that is, when you look at the guys that are succeeding offensively right now, it's Nolan Gorman with an 1,100 OPS over the last 3 weeks. Mason Wynn with an OPS of 1,000 over the last few weeks. You've got Alec Burleson, who's hitting for a bunch of power right now. Like, are those really guys that you're expecting to continue doing this? Maybe they're just better players than we're giving them credit for. But I bet you Gorman's going to go back into a massive slump at some point.
Yep.
Because he's going to be really hot and really cold, and his numbers end up somewhere in between, and you feel okay about it at the end of the season, even though the bad feels real bad. You need Goldie to continue to be able to drive the offense, and you need Arenado to heat up at some point, and he just hasn't done that yet. And you need your pitching to stabilize, which not sure that I can believe in that.
So a lot of needs right now for this team.
The Cardinals are a mediocre team that is being helped by the fact that the National League is bad around them. And that's why it's really difficult for me to evaluate this roster right now. I'm a little more optimistic than these guys are. Hopefully they end up showing a little bit of life later on today. 1-0 is the score right now. Fastlane will certainly have you covered on that throughout the afternoon. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fastlane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.